5:19 p.m. on Wednesday, June 15, 2022. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, let me get that. Okay. Councilmember Hensy?
Here.
Councilmember Kranz?
Here.
Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Here.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Here.
Record will show that all members of the City Council are present.
Okay, thank you. Well, we do have a very weighty, hefty agenda tonight, so we're going to try to keep things moving as efficiently as possible and keep to certain prescribed time limits on things. For example, public comment. I don't know how many we have, but we'll take the first 30 minutes at the beginning and then the rest at the end if we have more than that. So we'll move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We have no special presentations and proclamations, so we will move to oral communications, and I will hand it over to the city clerk.
All right, if you wish to speak during oral communications, please raise your hand at this time. This is only for commenting on items that are not listed on the agenda. When I call your name, you will please unmute your microphone and you can enable your video if desired, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Our first speaker is Julie Thunder.
Julie, you have to accept when I promote you to panelist.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, that's great. Okay. We can all agree that living near land that's left in its natural state is both desirable and good for our health. It's also good for the health of our native plants and wildlife, including birds and local bee colonies that are diminishing. People here and across the country have committed to funding open space with fees and special taxes. Those funds, once accumulated, can be leveraged with grants from private foundations and state and federal government. In 2016, a survey of Encinitas residents showed that 76% wanted more open space. So on then Councilmember Mark Muir's recommendation, the city created an open space acquisition fund and gave it a healthy start with a $500,000 cash infusion. That amount, plus the accumulation of open space acquisition fees, should have become a sizable fund by now. With matching funds, we would have had some real firepower to protect and expand our open space inventory. But that didn't happen. The money's gone and it wasn't spent on open space. In 2019, just 3 years after opening it, this council changed the name of our open space fund to the Opportunity Fund. And then later, you voted to transfer $410,000 from the old fund to the new Opportunity Fund. That wiped out our open space fund, our land acquisition savings account. It died a quiet death, unnoticed by most of the public. But I published commentary about these developments at the time, and I campaigned on restoring the open space fund when I ran for mayor in 2020. But here we are 2 years later and nothing's changed. Instead, just in time for election season, you finally woke up. But what did you do? In February, you passed a resolution that's devoid of action. With 13 whereases and a collection of meaningless verbs, you resolved to support, foster, continue, investigate, and bring forward for consideration a comprehensive strategy. But you did nothing. No money, no action. This was just a resolution, nothing more than a meaningless participation trophy for its sponsors, Kelly and Joy. Tonight, I call upon this council to provide a public accounting of the open space funds and of the initial $500,000. Tell the people where their money went. As for the future, I look forward to next year when a new council can get serious about this. The voters want more open space. The health of our environment depends on open space. Our elected representatives should make sure we get it honestly and openly. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mark Wilcox.
Yeah. Oh, good.
You have to accept when I promote you to panelist.
Hey, Tom, you might want to mute your mic.
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Blake Spear and City Council members. Last month at City Council, I was listening to a speaker who addressed National Fentanyl Awareness Day on May 10th. I was struck by fentanyl poisonings that happen to youth when consuming prescription look-alike drugs bought illegally by young people. Most often, these prescription look-alike drugs are Xanax and Adderall. And now there are reports of fentanyl contamination of marijuana products, all of which are consumed by youth unknowingly. The speaker indicated that in the prevention community, they examined 1, where does the illegal drug choosing behavior come from? 2, what messages of acceptability by those under the age of 25 support this? And 3, what access and availability to drugs sustain this drug choosing behavior? Not only does drug choosing behavior endanger youth vulnerability to fentanyl poisoning, but it is a pathway to adult drug using behavior, where fentanyl use may even be a choice. Then over the weekend, a well-known and respected physician wrote in the UT, quote, "I have not met a person who overdosed on fentanyl who did not start with marijuana. You can pretend to be serious about drug prevention you cannot pretend to be serious about drug prevention without addressing youth marijuana use," end of quote. So as a parent and grandparent, I wonder and ask, how can this city interrupt this acceptability, access, and availability to marijuana that enable youth marijuana use? The city could begin by banning candy-flavored vapes and foods and highly concentrated THC products sold in marijuana storefronts. Also, the city could prohibit any marijuana advertising that would be seen by youth around the city, like the back of grocery store receipts, coupons at street fairs, and sandwich boards on the sidewalks. Maybe we cannot prevent predatory marijuana marketing techniques entirely, but we can mitigate it, and we should do everything possible. Thank you.
Next speaker is Terry Ann Skelly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, before you start, Chief Stein, can you please mute your microphone? And Steve, please mute your microphone. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Terry Ann Skelly.
No problem. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As a parent of young adult sons, I've followed the city's unfortunate circumstances that will add marijuana businesses to our city. I came to share with you that I've joined other parents in the county and states to support the Vote Yes campaign on a ban on the sale of addictive candy-flavored e-cigarettes that will be on the November ballot. Big Tobacco has spent billions marketing e-cigarettes and vaping devices as tools for relieving stress. It's worked out well for them, not so great for our kids though. Many teens say they picked up e-cigarettes as a way to deal with stress and anxiety, only to realize much later that vaping can make their mental health worse. Now, big marijuana has done the same thing. When young people start vaping, the nicotine or marijuana gives them a short buzz. They puff and puff again to recreate that same feeling. But nicotine is highly addictive, and soon they feel anxious again and stressed and depressed, and their bodies experience nicotine withdrawal. Recent research suggests that the highly concentrated THC found in marijuana vaping devices is also addictive. Perhaps the city could consider a limitation on the THC content on the marijuana products that are sold in Encinitas and advertised and promoted to our very young people. More and more cities put limitations, on tobacco products sold in their towns. Now there's a fledgling movement to do the same for high THC concentrated marijuana products. Thank you for your consideration.
Next speaker is Gia Shockey.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening, Encinitas Mayor Blake Spear and City Council members. I'm Gia Shockey, and I'm with the San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth. Since there are no City Council meetings in July, I wanted you, your listeners, and staff to be informed about the upcoming National Marijuana Facts Week, which is July 4th through the 11th. This week-long observance culminates on Sunday, July 10th, which is Anti-710 Dab Day. Turned upside down, the digits 710 spell oil. Cannabis oil is a type of high-potency marijuana, often referred to as the slang term dabs. Recently, adolescents and young adults say taking a dab or using the dab rig when referring to high THC content marijuana. Currently, dab products are the most commonly sold items in marijuana storefronts. Last year, on Anti-710 Dab Day, an organized walk through San Marcos Park was planned. Participants walked in the remembrance of the youth for whom marijuana use was fatal. A particularly poignant story comes from Laura Stack. She founded the national organization called Johnny's Ambassadors and also sponsors National Marijuana Facts Week. Her son, Johnny's young and vibrant life ended by suicide after his descent into addiction after using high-potency marijuana dabs. His story is a clarion call for students, young adults, and parents across America to educate themselves about the risks of today's high THC marijuana products. Information and foundations such as Johnny's Ambassadors help our community better understand the potentially devastating effects on youth mental health. Hopefully, the City Council can be counted amongst trusted adults and healthcare professionals who are concerned about the harmful effects that marijuana places on our children, teenagers, and emerging adults. Thanks for the opportunity to share this life-saving information, and have a wonderful week.
Next speaker is Robin Anka.
Hello, can you all see me, hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, my name is Robin Anka. I have submitted this in an email to all of you, and I've talked to my council member as well, but I wanted to follow up with all of you and speak at today's council meeting to ensure that you all received my message. My husband John and myself were residents at 533 3rd Street, and we're working on a major remodel. We submitted for our coastal development permit in June of 2021. We're still in planning, so you can imagine the frustration here. But during the permitting process, we were informed that we had to install retention basins to capture stormwater runoff. This is a one-size-fits-all approach that the city has in place for standard development. We understand and respect the city's desire to keep our waterways and, of course, the ocean clear of as much contamination and sedimentation as possible. With this in mind, a number of years ago, we constructed and installed two 330-gallon tanks to capture all the rain that falls on our rooftop. We routed all the gutters to these tanks, which are elevated a few feet off the ground so water can be gravity fed to our trees and plants. We are proud and very happy to have this system in place to both prevent excess water leaving our property and to conserve water. None of this was required. This is something that we chose to do because it's a passion of ours. We have a small lot, and despite finding areas on our property to receive surface area credits, the stormwater retention basins will have a big impact on our yard. The point here is to let you know that city staff has informed us that we will receive 0 credit for capturing and reusing stormwater. As water professionals and residents that have proactively taken steps to alleviate stormwater runoff and conserve water, this is extremely disappointing and very frustrating. Ideally, we would receive credit for every drop we capture and reuse. This would ultimately reduce the footprint of the retention basin on our property, but we will be developing a capture and reuse system similar to what we currently have in place. And to be clear, this is not about saving money. It's about doing the right thing and doing it in a way that clearly achieves the city's desired goal. As you all are well aware, we are in the midst of a historic drought. Conserving water should be a priority for everyone in the state and the Western US. My husband is an employee of the Levenheim Municipal Water District, and I'm a civil engineer working in the field of water myself. We're collectively aware of the overall water condition in the state as well as the San Diego region. Based on Governor Newsom declaring a state of emergency, the State Water Resources Control Board has adopted an emergency regulation to reduce water demand and improve water conservation. Further, the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California has also issued emergency regulation for water conservation.
Robin,
yes.
Robin, that is your 3 minutes.
Okay. So shall I stop or shall I finish my last 2 sentences?
Mayor, can she finish her last 2 sentences?
You can finish your last 2 sentences.
Okay. My husband and I want the city to allow us to receive credits for capturing stormwater for reuse. Can you please pass an emergency resolution or decree acknowledging the severity of the drought and encourage residents to do their part to conserve water? Concurrently, can the council please support and state that stormwater capture and reuse is very much in line with stormwater objectives and drought conservation efforts in the context of the current water emergency. Therefore, staff should have the authority to allow us a credit in sizing our retention basin, and we should not have to include areas that are flowing to our stormwater capture and reuse system. Can you please agendize this topic and take immediate action, as the issue of water is in fact an emergency? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I agree with the speaker. I'm not sure if there's flexibility within the system, but I think we should ask our staff to at least examine whether or not the state allows us some flexibility, because we want to encourage exactly what these homeowners are doing.
Yes, let's ask the staff to get back to us with some more information about what's possible.
Next speaker is Geraldine Kessler.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I would like to speak about the proposed environmental nightmare housing project on Melba Road that is slated to take down a grove of mature Torrey pines, 173 trees, 30 smaller trees and native shrubs, along with demoing 3 beautiful historical homes built in 1938 or earlier on 6.6 acres for 31 homes, all based on the ill-fated density bonus law AB 2345. Receiving the notice of preparation from the city and developer has only brought anxiety throughout the neighborhood, especially for the long-time senior citizen tax-paying residents. I have been researching this property for a year and a half, and though it's very challenging to me because my background is mainly medical, I feel that this property meets the criteria for historical and vernacular landscapes and preservation and protection. The definition of historic vernacular landscape is a landscape that has evolved through use by people whose activities or occupancy shape that landscape through the social or cultural attitudes of an individual, family, or community. The landscape reflects the physical, biological, cultural character of those everyday lives, it plays a significant role in vernacular landscapes. They can be a single property, such as a farm, or a collection of properties, such as a district of historical farms along a river valley. Examples include rural villages, industrial complex, and agricultural landscapes. This characterizes the property on Melba to a T. This property was once owned by the original owner of the Botanical Gardens, and he was also the founding member of the Water District, Anton van Amersfoort, who was a self-trained botanist and who we feel planted many trees in the neighborhood. And he was also responsible for the water bond that provided water to Encinitas from Lake Hodges, which in turn set up Encinitas to become the flower capital of the world and set the stage for Encinitas' agricultural industry in the 1930s and 40s. The Melba property abuts the last rural horse farm in Encinitas, is close proximity to Oakcrest Park, which is home to rare and endangered species such as the gnatcatchers and Delmar manzanitas. It has a beautiful Torrey Pines tree line and many other mature trees. It is adjacent to the last rural horse farm, and it has at least 3 historical homes built on the property, plus an administrative building and older greenhouses. This property is like no other left in Encinitas. I would like the city to assist the community in any way possible, if you can, with the preservation of this last historical gem in the community, perhaps with soft green infrastructure funding or a bond for open space and community funding. Thank you for listening.
Next speaker is Katrina Priest.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. All right, good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. I am a middle school teacher and parent of 2 teens. I am passionate about protecting young people from drug use that short circuits their journey to adulthood faster than any other problem. With marijuana storefronts coming to Encinitas, I wanted to share this information regarding one of the ongoing problems associated with marijuana advertising and merchandising that targets young adults. It is the marijuana-infused copycats of products from Pepsi, Kellogg's, General Mills, and others. For example, Nerds Rope is packaged to look just like the popular candy made by Nestle, but its pot version contains 400 milligrams of THC, the chemical marijuana that makes people high. The candy is about 40 times the amount used by pot smokers. A dozen major food and beverage companies like Consumer Brands Association have asked Congress to do more to prevent the proliferation of marijuana-infused copycat products that mimic their well-known brands. They want to deter the sale of the products by broadening an existing law called Shop Safe Act, which bars the sale of counterfeit products, to be amended to include the broader term famous marks. A famous mark is something widely recognized by the consuming public. Food companies have invested decades in developing the credibility and trustworthiness of their recognizable brands, and they are being hijacked. These copycat products make us all wonder why marijuana businesses need to use subterfuge to package and market their products. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Dennis Doyle.
Dennis, you need to unmute.
Checking to see if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm sorry. Couldn't hear you. We did submit a 9-slide PowerPoint. Is that queued up? There we go. Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much. My name is Dennis Doyle, and thank you, Honorable Mayor Blake Spear and members of the council. I'm president of the board of directors of Collaborations Teachers and Artists. And I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank the families in Encinitas who embraced our evidence-based research that studied creativity and innovation in alignment with the needs of the future workforce, a longitudinal research project that started in the city of Encinitas back in 2014. If you can move that forward, or am I moving it forward? There we go, good. Yeah, the training we provided started at Parkdale Lane Elementary School and focused on how to teach academic subjects through different art forms, teaching math through dance and movement, and science lessons through project-based theater productions, as a couple of examples. And the research showed statistically significant growth in students demonstrated creativity, critical thinking, empathy, and as well in consistently observable high levels of pupil collaboration. We can advance this. The key quantitative and qualitative findings of the Centers for Research on Creativity, the external evaluator, have been synthesized and refined into ongoing multi-year professional development that continues to this day in the city of Encinitas, and as well now in the city in San Diego County and across the entire state of California. All these skills, problem solving, working collaboratively, empathy, critical thinking, and innovative explorations are even more vital to the workforce of the future as we look forward as far into the future as we all can see. And truly, we begin to prepare our children for their future by what we do today. Go ahead and advance another one, please. To date, our organization, Collaborations Teachers and Artists, has worked with 60 individual teachers and 1,275 students in multi-year trainings in Encinitas schools to apply the results of the evidence-based research. Indeed, in a follow-up sample of teachers who have systematically learned the creative teaching strategies, those who went through the original 3-year professional development self-reported that they continue to use the instructional methods they learned in their instruction to this day. Go ahead, forward. We're currently working on a multi-year training with 29 teachers at El Camino Creek. You can see some of what the students just completed as they presented it in their celebration of learning last week. And we'd like to welcome the opportunity to provide additional professional development on creative teaching in Encinitas with your support. Thank you so much for your enlightened vision for the community. We stand ready to partner with you to turn your vision for the children of Encinitas into reality. I'd like to take a moment also to thank Arts Administrator Colette Murphy and Julie Gilliam, City of Encinitas Management Analyst, for encouraging us to engage with you this evening, and also to thank Nordstrom Corporation for their support as well. We can move forward another one, and we'll.
Is this your 3 minutes is up? Is this your last slide?
I think there's one more, but might be another one. Let's see. There we go.
Thank you for your comments today. Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks to the entire city. We really appreciate your work. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Our final speaker under oral communications is Judy Sanzo.
Hello, this is Judy Sanzo. I'm president and CEO of the Rancho Coastal Humane Society. I'm not sure if I'm in the right spot for this, but I did want to talk about the City of Encinitas Community Grant Program. We submitted an application for grant funding.
We'll be coming up to that item, so okay. That's actually not, this isn't the right time for that comment.
Okay, so I'll wait till we reach that agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, I do not see any other individuals wishing to speak during oral communications, so that does close oral communications, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you to everyone who spoke today during oral communications. Our next item is report from closed session.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have no items to report from closed session this evening.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have our consent calendar, which is 8.
Before we move to consent calendar, we do have one change to the posted agenda, and that is item 8J. There were 5 letters that are in the recommended action for council approval. However, the one listed as number 2 regarding AB 2053 has been withdrawn. So you'll just be acting on letter 1, AB 1946, number 3, AB 2257, 4, SB 852, and number 5, SB 932.
Okay, so there's item 8A through 8L, and
I'd like to pull item K, 8K.
Okay, that's continuation of remote meetings. So let's entertain a motion on the balance.
I'll move approval of the balance of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, we got ahead of ourselves before we vote. We need to take public comment on the consent calendar. That's my fault. Excuse me for that. So if you do wish to speak on items on the consent calendar, please raise your hand and we will call you. Okay, our first speaker is phone number ending in 234.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, this is Terry Ann Skelly. I'm a mother of 3 adult sons who works on behalf of young adults to safeguard their passage to productive adulthood. The suggested marijuana tax rate for marijuana storefronts in item 8D for the county should be reconsidered. I respectfully suggest that the city of Encinitas use the San Diego tax rate of 8% for a marijuana storefront business. However, make no mistake, taxes collected for marijuana businesses do not diminish the harm they create for young adults and to the neighborhoods. It will never be a good thing for our youth to see the advertising and marketing that will come from having marijuana businesses in our communities, not to mention the merchandise and clothing for marijuana storefronts that will walk around our high school campuses. FYI, the city of San Diego has only collected taxes from less than 50% of their marijuana businesses. Will Encinitas have the staff potential to go after these tax-dogging scofflaws? Thank you for this opportunity to share with you my concerns regarding this most unfortunate situation of marijuana storefronts in our city.
Next speaker is Judy Strang.
Good evening, City Council. I am here on behalf of San Diego Alliance for Drug-Free Youth, and I wanted to talk to you about the item number 8D, excuse me, regarding the marijuana tax on the November ballot. We respectfully would like to ask that you consider a small change in Section 5. Section 5 reads, any future changes or amendments to the ordinance, including any future changes, I'll just sort of paraphrase, would require that a vote would return to the populace. And our concern is that you're suggesting a fixed sliding rate, and the upper end of the rate of taxes for marijuana storefronts we feel could be too low. And because you couldn't change it without taking it back to the people of Encinitas, we'd like to suggest that at your consideration of raising that upper limit from the 7% to the 8% that we see in other cities, so that should you decide at some later time it would be a benefit to all of us to raise that rate, you would be able to do it yourself and not have to take the issue back to a vote to the people. Thank you for this consideration to protect our young people, our families, and our neighborhoods.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Kathy, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I just wanted to make sure I'll have an opportunity to speak about 8K. I couldn't hear if he said 8K or 8J, or I couldn't hear.
8K is pulled by
K kilo.
8K was pulled by Councilmember Kranz, so we will hear that after consent calendar.
Okay, I'd like to speak then. Thank you.
You don't want to, okay. Next speaker is Mark Wilcox.
Good evening again, Mayor and City Council. This is Mark Wilcox again. I'm a father and grandfather and youth advocate. Item 8D regarding placing a marijuana tax on the November 2022 ballot is an effort to mitigate the damages from marijuana storefronts in the city of Encinitas. Besides the vulnerability of their business neighbors, marijuana storefronts will influence young persons who will experience the marijuana advertising that come from storefronts to capture a new market. Also, our youth will undoubtedly be influenced by the visuality of seeing marijuana sales and use as part of commercial marketplace. I respectfully suggest that since in the San Diego region, especially Carmel Valley and Sorrento Valley, the city of San Diego has a marijuana business tax of 8%, and so should Encinitas be at 8% as well. Since the Department of Cannabis Control has no funding to provide oversight of marijuana storefronts, we parents hope that Encinitas code enforcement and city staff will be prepared to collect the taxes this ballot measure will bring, since other cities have struggled to do that. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kelly McCormick.
Good evening. This is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator, and I encourage the City Council to seek a tax rate that covers the quantifiable costs of marijuana regulation and includes money directed toward code enforcement and minor decoy operations. In reality, the commercial marijuana industry will carry costs that cannot be measured in dollars and cents. The link between marijuana use and mental illness is well documented. Numerous studies from well-respected institutions and publications detail the risks of cannabis-induced psychosis, earlier onset of schizophrenia, suicidal thoughts, and completed suicides, with the most vulnerable being those who begin using high THC marijuana products before the age of 25, while the brain is still developing. The pot industry does not care about these lives. If you don't believe me, I urge you to take a look at the social media accounts of commercial marijuana retailers and brands, which aggressively and shamelessly promote high THC concentrates to young consumers. San Diego County Hospital emergency departments treat an average of 39 marijuana-related cases each day. This places a huge financial burden on hospital emergency departments and strains hospital capacity. It increases the burden on first responders and mental health care providers. Tax money cannot make up for these costs. Thank you.
And then let's see, that does conclude comments on the consent calendar. And we did have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item 8K, which was pulled by Councilmember Kranz.
Okay, then let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move to item 8K.
Can we hear the public speaker?
Okay, if you're wishing to speak on item 8K, please raise your hand. First speaker is Kevin Doyle. Kevin will be followed by Rachel Graves. If anyone else wants to speak on item 8K, please raise your hand.
Hi there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear and everyone on the council. You all know me. I'm Kevin Doyle, Planning Commissioner from Old Encinitas. Speaking with you tonight on this item 8K, the continued virtual meetings for council and commissions. Now, I know remote meetings have become commonplace, but they limit access. Not everyone's comfortable speaking into the little camera, and a lot of people just sit it out. Now, I know my earliest mentors on the Planning Commission always stressed the importance of the public comment period. I mean, nobody knows the neighborhood better than the people who live there, and they know things that no staff report's ever going to capture. So the Planning Commission, really, we work at a hyper-local level. We affect people right where they live, and we really want and need to hear what they say. Now, I'm concerned. I know Zoom meetings may be more efficient, but I think the Planning Commission especially, we get the best results when the public is intimately involved in the process. So I'm going to urge you tonight to come up with a more nuanced solution than just shutting down the meetings. I think we could come up with a hybrid solution. We could be face masks, we could be physical distancing again, but please, I urge you to open the meetings to the public once more. So thank you all for all you do, and thank you for your service.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Hi, is Kelly Hinsey here? Or did she leave? Thank you, Tony, for pulling 8 Kilo. I'm Dr. Rachel Graves. I am one of the victims of Mayor Blakespear's suppression of free speech in violation of her oath of office. But on to the Zoom meeting issue. For the 4th time, I'm here to request that the City Council stop abusing your authority under the guises that don't exist, like the fake Cal OSHA regulations, or those that should not exist, like the state of emergency in Encinitas. On March 18, 2020, 4 of you voted to ratify the emergency proclamation due to COVID-19. It reads, quote, said local emergency should be deemed to continue to exist until its termination is proclaimed by the City Council, which shall be done at the earliest possible date the conditions warrant, unquote. Aside from the bubble of vaccinated Encinitas city employees who are causing outbreaks at 3 locations, what is the trend around the rest of the city of Encinitas? We know the emergency isn't at swanky hotels where Blakespear held her after party on election night. We know it's not at homes where council members Lyons and Mosca host parties with special guest Tony Kranz. We know it's not at businesses so long as they're campaign fundraisers. And we know it's not outside because some of you have attended car shows and rallies. We know restaurants and schools aren't affected because there are no restrictions at those locations. And we know we can go to the beach now and sit in our cars now without getting ticketed. Super spreader events are not posing a danger either because the city approved a 300-person concert at Encinitas for Equality this last weekend, and Bro-Am is coming up in just 3 days. And if now that's not enough, I came to City Hall today. A big sign outside said it was a mask zone due to an outbreak. In total, I came across 11 employees inside the building. Guess how many had masks on? 3 of them. 8 of those employees were not wearing masks. This charade has got to stop. At the April 27th City Council meeting, Hinsey admitted she thought we were no longer in the emergency state. Kranz said, quote, it feels kind of funny being in a declared state of emergency in our city when the governor has revoked his declaration, unquote. Antle said she hoped by May 11th you could bring something forward to terminate it. Antle also said outdoor dining was the last hanging chad, quote. But of course she didn't bring it forward on May 11th, and nor did you. According to the March 18th proclamation, you as City Council are obligated to terminate the proclamation. For at minimum 7 weeks, you have failed to uphold your responsibility that you agreed to. This is intentional dereliction of duty. Do your job and terminate the state of emergency. Thank you.
And that concludes public comments on item 8K.
Okay, Councilmember Krantz, would you like to?
Yeah, so I tend to agree with Commissioner Doyle that we should be doing public meetings or at least hybrid. Although I would point out that the participation issue is unknown, that whether this virtual meeting actually reduces public participation, because there are indeed people who will participate virtually that will not come to a meeting and sit in person. So I think that's mixed, but in the meantime, I much prefer in person. So while I'm going to support this resolution tonight, I do think I'd like to make a motion that we also direct the city manager to take care of the technological issues so that we can conduct meetings at the community center. We have historically conducted many meetings over the last 10 years of my service at the community center, and they were fully produced and not easy to fully produce because we don't have the automated setup that we have at City Hall. But I would like the city manager and her IT team to identify what it would take to be able to produce a meeting at the community center in the event that there are future outbreaks, so that we can continue to meet in person. So I would move approval with that direction to the city manager.
I mean, I'll just say that I think we need to go back to meetings as soon as possible, but moving our meetings to a different location seems really burdensome and also difficult for the public. I mean, to say we're going to be in a new location when people are used to coming to City Hall and other people are used to logging in and prefer to stay in their own home. I mean, I'd like to just ask the city manager, what do you think the expectation is in terms of after the summer recess, our first meeting, which is like the second week of August, right?
Well, so if you adopt this tonight, it's only good for 30 days, which means it'll expire in July. So our expectation is that we will be live at the first meeting in August. We do have 5 new cases this week at City Hall. We're not out of our outbreak, but we would also like to be back live, and we're not planning on bringing anything back after July unless I lose all of my staff, which I can't imagine that would happen. I think things are slowing down. So, but I can't predict anything, but I can tell you because of the way that the resolution works, it's only good for 30 days and you'll be on break when it expires.
Yeah, but we called for an emergency meeting in order to adopt the resolution to meet virtually again, which I would expect if there's a continued outbreak that we would do that again. But instead, this time, I think that it would be appropriate to meet at the community center, which has higher ceilings, doors that are openable, plenty of technology there to take advantage of, and many meetings have been held there, and the public didn't have any difficulty shifting from City Hall attendance to community center attendance, where you'd also have plenty of room to physically distance. And so, it's a facility that the city owns. We should have it set up to be able to conduct meetings there without having issues related to technology. We have a ton of technology there already. And it's just, there's no reason why we aren't prepared to conduct regular meetings at that facility. So that would be my motion, that we adopt this resolution and direct the city manager to take care of the technological issues to hold meetings at the community center.
Okay, let me call in Councilmember Mosca. Go ahead, Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. I do think City Manager Entel, if you could at some point soon just kind of reiterate the points that you made before about the outbreak and why we're having this virtual, why we moved to the virtual. I think it's necessary to restate that, especially since we've had some claims by some of the speakers. And I just wanted to, a couple of comments. I respect Commissioner Doyle and respect his service, and I thank him for his service. Just picking up on what Councilmember Krantz was saying, I just wanted to say that when Commissioner Doyle said that that we need to go back to in person because the public is shut out, quote unquote, shut out, or that the meetings are not open. I'm not sure if he meant that, because I do think that these meetings are not shut out, and they are in fact open. And I would say that I'm not sure, just like Councilmember Kranz, what the participation looks like and the different demographics that are participating. But I'd say that we have just as much participation virtually as we do when we're in person. In fact, a lot of folks that I know in my district say that they're actually able to participate even more so because they were intimidated to come into City Hall, and it's really hard to come into City Hall and speak. And also because of time constraints, they can't come down to City Hall and wait for 2 or 3 hours, where they can come online and it's easier for them. And so I think that the online version, virtual version, has actually been very helpful to a whole lot of folks in the community, which is why I've been a proponent of a hybrid situation. However, hybrids are only good if we're not in an outbreak situation. So the facility, the City Hall, and the public works are in a state of outbreak, and so that doesn't work. And maybe City Manager Intel can talk a little bit more to that. I know that there have been hurdles in terms of having a meeting at the Senior and Community Center. At least people have been talking about hurdles. I'm not sure if there are hurdles to having it there, but I do think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, your direction, Councilmember Kranz, is to assess and to examine whether or not if in fact we still have an outbreak at City Hall, whether or not we could in fact have a public hearing at the Senior and Community Center. It's to examine whether or not we could.
Yeah, well, I think the direction should be to make that happen. But obviously, if there is something that causes makes it not possible, which I know it's possible because we've had a ton of meetings up there. And, in the meantime, it's not convenient. I get it, but it can be done. We also have the technology fund through our franchise fees with Cox and AT&T that is available in case there is any need to acquire technology. So I think that it is something that we should strive to do. I don't strive to have meetings there. I think that it would be ideal if we squelch the outbreak and go back to having meetings at City Hall. But I do think that as an alternative to City Hall meetings, having the community center ready to go is the right answer.
Well, I think you bring up a good alternative. And so I think that staff kind of examining it in light of the fact that what are the hurdles, how much is it going to cost? And also it sounds like we're going to be back in person at City Hall probably after the summer recess. And so does it make sense? How much are we going to spend, and what's the benefit here? Perhaps we can have something back by the next meeting to kind of weigh the options. I don't know. But at the very least, City Manager Intel, if you could kind of state the purposes for the virtual meeting and why we move from in-person at City Hall to virtual, that would be awesome, just so that the viewing public understands.
Sure. I think there's some misunderstanding that people are searching for Cal OSHA regulations about public meetings. And I think the point that folks are missing is that we have an obligation under Cal OSHA to reassess the building's activities when there is an outbreak. It was my recommendation that we go to online meetings, not because Cal OSHA tells us to go to online meetings, but because we felt that that would provide for more safety for the city council and employees. Our building is still open, but what we don't have right now are internal meetings where outside folks come in. So for example, our development services, when we have meetings with folks that have their application review, et cetera, we're doing that virtually. When we have our internal staff meetings, we're doing that virtual. And so I do think that there is a misunderstanding about what Cal OSHA's rules are. They ask us to do things like look at your ventilation, look at your ability to open windows, look at your ability to be able to separate people safely in large gatherings. And so we made a determination as an executive team that it would be the best to have online meetings while we went through this outbreak. Cali Mag is now officially out of their outbreak. City Hall had 5 new cases this week, so we've been extended to June 30th. But we are hopeful that those cases are now few and far between. Since I have the airspace, I'll just say people need to get their vaccines and their boosters. It's still, the vaccine isn't saying that you're not going to get COVID. It's that you're not going to end up in the hospital. We still have a lot of people who still spread a lot of COVID. And so we are trying the best that we can to try to keep people safe. If we can get out of this outbreak, we will definitely be, we all want to go back to in-person meetings. We also want to keep the public safe from outbreaks. I know if I was coming to a meeting, I'd want to know that everything was being done to keep me safe. So we're hopeful that we'll be through this in the next few weeks. It does show waves come after holiday weekends. We're hopeful that with the council break in the month of July, that we won't see the same uptick and that we'll be able to meet back in August. As far as the community center is concerned, our staff is already looking at what it would take to have public broadcast meetings at the community center. So I think we'll be bringing something back in the next few months. Unfortunately, I don't think we got that direction until after we've already prepared the budget. But we can definitely bring something back. I might ask the city clerk or the city attorney. I'm not sure if you notice a meeting at a different place, if it's a special meeting or we have to do something special or something like that. I'm not thinking that it's as easy as just moving to another location. I think there's some special noticing in that, but we can figure all of that out. It's not a hurdle that's not, something we can't get through.
Okay. Well, so, I think all of this talk on this subject makes it clear that we all want to be back. I think we've been on the edge of moving forward, both 2 meetings back to in-person compared to other cities in this county, and then also going back to virtual when we had an outbreak. And I expect we will be back in person, especially because what she said, it expires. We're not able to keep that going unless she would recommend bringing forward an extension, doing a special meeting during July. So at this point, I'm not going to be able to support directing that the next meeting be in a different place than City Hall or on.
That's not what I'm directing. That's not what I'm directing. I'm directing that we prepare the facility for conducting public meetings in the event of an outbreak. I'm not suggesting that we should move it unless there's another outbreak, but we'd be prepared to do that. So I appreciate that you may not support even that direction, but the reality is that I want to make sure that it gets stated properly.
Okay. Councilmember Hensy?
I'm supportive of Councilmember Krantz' suggestion to explore what it would take to prepare the community center, but I think we can't do that without knowing how much that will cost and what kind of staff time that would take. So I do like the idea of having a backup because I believe we will be in this state of overcoming outbreaks for a long time. And I do have the desire that we go back in public. But if that is, if that's prepared and given to us in a way that we can digest that information and see how much it would cost, I could support it.
Is that your motion, Councilmember Krantz? Is it to explore or?
I think it should be directing her to make that possible. I don't, but if it's necessary to identify the cost first, I know that I'm confident to state that it would be within her spending capacity, that wouldn't take council action, and therefore direction to make it happen, should be possible. My recollection of all of the produced meetings up there was that we had cameras on wheels and we were doing our meetings, and it was not, back in those days, it was not a big deal. Well, it was more work for staff, I get that, but it was, council had several workshops up there, and it was just part of accommodating more people. And so that to me is the distinction between whether we're directing her to tell us how much it's going to cost. I think the key is that she knows that she has the authority to spend a reasonable amount of money to make it a little more feasible. So, and the reality is that she could do it right right away, even if it was to be produced like it used to be.
City Manager, did you want to say anything in response to that? Did you have your hand up?
Oh, I just, City Clerk was kind enough to remind me that part of our issue these last few weeks is that we have noticing that's required for various types of items, public hearing, appeals, etc. So part of the concern that we have, so not related to the technology, is that sometimes you have to decide where the meeting's going to be before you know where the meeting's going to be. So we've had to select virtual in some cases because we have a 15 or 10-day meeting notice on something and we were still in the outbreak. But we can bring something back in terms of how much it costs. The community center does need an upgrade in terms of its sound system, as we know from a few events that we've had in the last few months. What I really don't have any clue how much it is to do the broadcast piece, but you know, we have people who can figure that out and we can bring something back.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy, is your hand back up?
Yeah, all I would add is that my understanding is that we wouldn't just need to do it for council meetings, but we'd have to do it for every other public meeting, commission meeting. And so those temporary costs of renting film things and you know, it's going to add up pretty fast. So that's one reason why I would like to see how much it would cost to go forward with this effort. I'll also note that, you know, we've spent a lot of money in upgrading our council chambers for security purposes and having evaluations from our sheriff's deputies to let us know the right protocols. And we would probably have to go through some similar protocols at the senior center.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm okay with modifying the motion to direct city manager to bring the cost and effort that's necessary to make that happen. But
okay, let's go. Okay, so I'll second your motion. Let's move forward with that.
Mayor, just on the motion, it's clearly about cost, but there's also other logistics. So if staff can identify all all logistics, all barriers to having it there, what has to happen in order to make it happen, not only for the city council, but all commissions and committees.
Yes. And yeah, we've had plenty of meetings up there, so I'm sure there's people with knowledge of what that would take. So, but yes, full report.
Okay.
Just to clarify, to make sure I'm clear on the direction, it's direction to the city manager to explore costs and efforts needed to use the community center for city council meetings?
I would call it logistics or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any barriers,
It would also be for if we go in person, then it would be for all commissions and committees as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But it's also to, the first part of the motion was the staff recommendation,
Correct.
which is on consent, right?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, if we're ready to start voting, Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. We're on to our first action item, which is 10A, public hearing to receive testimony regarding the Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District. And I'll just read, if you want to make a public comment, put your hand up now, please. So the procedures for public hearings, staff report will go first. Then council will disclose any other information received not included in the staff report. We'll ask questions, open the public hearing, close the public hearing, and council direction and action. So let's go ahead with staff report given.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you is a public hearing to receive testimony on the renewal of the Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District for fiscal year 2002-2003. State law requires that a public hearing be held prior to council's renewal of the district and authorization to collect assessments for the upcoming year. On May 25th of this year, Council received the preliminary engineer's report and adopted a resolution stating its intention to renew the landscape and lighting district. Tonight's public hearing is the final step in the annual renewal of the Encinitas Landscape and Lighting District for zones A through H. The recommended actions are to conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Okay, that was the full staff report. That's nice and brief. Okay, now I'll ask the city clerk to call on the council to disclose any other information they've received.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Crayons,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Lyons,
Nothing to disclose.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Nothing to disclose.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Nothing to disclose.
Okay, and then final call for, oh, sorry, you need to open the public hearing.
Okay, yes, I will officially open the public hearing.
And if there's any speakers on the Encinitas Lighting and Landscape District, please raise your hand now. There are no speakers.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And if there's, I would entertain a motion.
Move
Councilmember
approval.
Mosca?
Second to Councilmember Kranz's motion.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item 10B, Transnet Local Street Improvement Program of Projects for fiscal year 2022 through 2027. So I'll hand it over to Senior Management Analyst Ruiz.
And I have another very brief presentation for you. The Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP, is a program of proposed highway, arterial, transit, and bikeway projects. The San Diego Association of Governments is required to develop and adopt the RTIP every 2 years. Each member agency of SANDAG that desires to expend Transnet and/or certain federal or state funds must approve a program of projects once every 2 years. This approval process includes consideration of the city's program of projects at a public hearing and the adoption of a resolution. The recommended actions are to conduct the public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Okay. Do we need to go through the same procedures that we just did, City Clerk?
Yes, I'll call everyone. This is for disclosures. Councilmember Hensy,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Crayons,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Lyons,
Nothing to disclose.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Nothing to disclose.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Nothing to disclose, and I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And if you would like to speak, raise your hand.
Yes, if you'd like to speak on this item, which is the RTIP, we do not have any public speakers.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Kathy, I noticed that somebody has their hand up. I don't know if we want to call them.
Okay, I wasn't on there. Carolina? Montejo? And just making sure, Carolina, you are speaking regarding the Transnet Local Street Improvement Program?
Okay, well, that may have been a mistake, right? 'Cause we're not hearing her.
Yeah, she added as a panelist, then dropped out.
Okay,
Okay.
so I will entertain a motion on that item.
Yes, I will move to approve.
And I'll second again.
Okay, let's vote.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. We're on to item 10C, which is approve the California Infrastructure and Economic Development Bank, the iBank loan terms, for the purpose of financing the Leucadia Streetscape Segment C West Side Improvement Project. and authorize the city manager to proceed. So I will hand it over to staff for a presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Teresa McBroom, the Director of Finance, and this item is related to the final approval of iBank's loan terms. Just a quick background. Out of the May 3rd, 2021 Strategic and Planning meeting, Council directed staff to seek financing for the construction of the Leucadia Streetscape Segment C project. The project expenditures and loan proceeds were approved and included in the current budget, so for fiscal year 2021-22. Council approved submission of application to iBank and authorized incurring a loan at the October 27th, 2021 meeting. Based on that application, just recently on May 25th, iBank's Board of Directors unanimously approved the financing to the city, which is also when they determine and approve the interest rate and loan terms. This is a highlight of the loan terms as approved by the iBank's Board of Directors. This is for a loan not to exceed $20 million to be collateralized by the City Hall property, to be repaid over a period of 15 years at a rate of 3.3% interest, which is 3% plus a 0.3% annual fee on the unpaid balance. There will be a one-time loan origination fee of $200,000, which is 1% of the loan amount. The annual payments are approximately $1.7 million. And once the loan is closed, interest will start accruing and the payments will begin with the first payment in August 2022. iBank has requested that we close in June or July, which will make the funds available before construction of the project commences. The annual amounts are included in the budget and are included in the financial forecast, which has been reviewed by the city's bond financial advisor. The incurring of this debt is within the city's debt service policy and will not affect the city's AAA credit rating, which is the highest rating available. So with that, staff is recommending and is seeking approval of iBank's loan terms for the purpose of financing the Leucadia Streetscape Segment C West Side Improvements Project and authorizing the city manager to proceed with the loan closing. This concludes my presentation and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. This is an exciting day. This item is, so thank you. Do we have public comments on this item?
I do not see any, so last call. If anyone wants to speak on this item, item 10C, which is the iBank loan, please raise your hand at this time.
Okay, well, we're full steam ahead on Leucadia Streetscape here, so I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blackspear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on to item 10D, City of Encinitas Community Grant Program application requests. So I'll hand it over to Arts Administrator Murphy.
Good evening. Can you see us?
We can.
Sure. Okay. Good evening. First, I would like to express gratitude to the Ecke Family Foundation for contributing $10,000 to the Community Grant Program again this year, and also to the Community Grant Program Evaluation Panel participants, which include Arts Commissioner Valenzuela, Environmental Commissioner Parker, Parks and Rec Commissioner Ritter, and Senior Commissioner Hanwitt. The evaluation panel has made allocation recommendations tonight totaling $140,870. The remaining funds of $9,130 have been set aside for allocation by the City Council tonight. The allocation breakdown is $1,826 per member of council if council chooses to allocate the remaining funds in this way. Tonight, as you allocate the available funds, please reference the applicant number, the organization, and the amount of additional funding to be awarded. Julie will enter that information, excuse me, and the document will update in real time that you see on the screen. Thank you.
Okay, and if you do want to speak on this item, please raise your hand at this time. Are you ready for public comment, Mayor?
Yes, please.
Okay, our first speaker is Nancy Logan.
Hello, can you hear me, Kathy?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening, Council. It's Nancy Logan with San Diego Alliance. It's been a long time. Nice to see all of you. I want to thank you for your continued support of our Study Buddy program. Study Buddy is a peer mentor after-school program for elementary students with educational, social, or emotional needs. We train high school students that have pledged to be alcohol, tobacco, and drug-free to serve as mentors and tutors to help the elementary students connect socially, emotionally, and improving academics performance. In partnering with the Encinitas Union School District and the San Diego Union High School District, Study Buddies, has been successful for 30 years, and we hope to continue for many more. Again, thank you for your support, and if you find yourself with any remaining funds, we sure could use them. Thank you, and I can answer any questions if any of you have questions on Study Buddies.
Okay, next speaker is Judy Sanzo.
I would point out that Carolina is still with us. Maybe she wanted to speak on this item. I don't know.
Okay.
Hello, does that mean I can speak?
Who is on right now?
This is Carolina, yes.
Oh, okay. Are you speaking on the grants?
Yes, I'm sorry. I heard Art the last
Oh, okay, go ahead.
time and I thought it was this one, but I made a mistake. Hello, good evening, Mayor Blakespeare and City Council members. As I was saying, my name is Carolina Montejo, and I am here tonight to speak in favor of the award of a community grant to Campana Studios. I'm a curator, a filmmaker, and an instructor at UCSD. I teach ecofeminism in Muir College in the Environmental Studies program. And about 6 months ago, Campana Studios approached me to ask if I would like to curate an art show at Perspective Space, which is located at 555 2nd Street in Encinitas. And the show, titled Femme Fatale, is currently installed and available to the public there. And Femme Fatale is an homage to trans and cis women from the San Diego region who are impacting social, political, and environmental issues through their dynamic and engaging work. This week, on Thursday, actually tomorrow, we'll be screening a documentary series about the show, and I hope you can all join us. This show and our associated programming would not be possible without the support of Campana Studios. Campana provided logistical and financial support for the show and created a space for our work. Campana brought this programming to Encinitas, and I believe the community here benefited. So I strongly support the award of a community grant to Campana Studios and would ask that you too as well. So thank you so much.
Next speaker is Judy Sanzo.
Good evening, everyone. Judy Sanzo on behalf of Rancho Coastal Humane Society. I have enjoyed being a spectator in the matter brought before the council this evening. I am hoping to address the council on item number 41. Rancho Coastal submitted an application for funding for emergency evacuation kits. At Rancho Coastal Humane Society, we are concerned about the safety of animals in the event of a natural disaster, as well as any occurrence on site which would cause us to have to evacuate animals that are currently housed in our kennels. At the present time, we have formulated a plan to provide 50 evacuation kits. 35 for dogs, and 15 for cats and rabbits. Those kits include microchip scanners, health first aid kits for both people and the animals, flashlights, batteries, bowls, supplies necessary, as well as food, and things like litter for the cats and litter boxes. Anything that we think a temporary shelter for the cat would be required to provide in the event of an emergency and an urgent evacuation. Previously, the City of Encinitas in the prior fiscal year granted us funds for 11 kits. We currently have 17 kits assembled. We are looking to fulfill the requirements for an additional 33 kits. We submitted a application for $5,000, which would actually help to fund 18 kits, 11 for dogs and 7 for cats. The cost per kit is just slightly different. It's $265 for a dog. It's $263 for a cat or rabbit. We believe that it is important to provide this emergency kit to neighbors who will help us to assume the responsibility for caring for a shelter animal until such time as the shelter animal can return to Rancho Coastal in a safe environment. We would ask that the City Council consider an award this year, which will help us to continue with our funding. Although in the past we have been successful in funding at annual fundraiser events, no surprise, we haven't had one for 2.5 years now. And so we are looking to the city to help us to raise the funds necessary to complete our proposal for 50 emergency evacuation kits. And I thank you very much for your consideration.
Next speaker is Jay Bell.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Blakespear and council members. My name is Jay Bell and I'm the president of Campana Studios. Application number 6 this evening for a community grant. Campana Studios is a visual arts nonprofit and we create platforms for artists to engage within our communities. We fulfill our mission and do this by leading free art workshops, facilitating art shows, and supporting other nonprofits with free creative programming and campaigns. First and foremost, thank you for the award of a community grant in the 21-22 cycle. Campana Studios was able to leverage that award of $567.80 with other grants and donations to provide 15 printmaking and youth art workshops in Encinitas last year. In addition to these workshops, we also began an ambitious project to create a new community-based art gallery here in Encinitas. In collaboration with Perspective Space at 555 2nd Street, we facilitated and co-curated 5 art shows with an average attendance of 300 people at each art show. In our 22-23 community grant application, we requested $5,000 of grant funding to continue and expand our programming at Perspective Space. The requested funding would offset our costs for space rental, promotion, artist reception costs, curatorial costs, and installation expenses. While our application was well received, our application was 2 points below the scoring threshold for funding, 2 points out of 100. And tonight we are requesting the City Council allocate $2,500 from the funding for the community grant program to support our efforts to bring high quality, community-based accessible art programming to Encinitas. The need for community-based visual arts spaces in Encinitas has been well documented, and Campana Studios is filling that need. The creation of community-based visual arts spaces has also been a priority of this council and is reflected in council's prioritization of the development of Pacific View, which I know is included tonight in this year's proposed CIP program. In the public comment on item 10D, you will read letters of support from artists, curators, residents, and business owners that see the value of Campana's programming. We value our partnership with the city, and you for your support to continue our work to fill the #1 goal of the Encinitas Arts Master Plan, which is to make arts available to all Encinitas citizens. So on behalf of Campana Studios and the community that we serve, we thank you for consideration of our request from the Community Grant Program and our efforts to bring high quality, community-based art programming to the citizens of Encinitas.
Next speaker is Katie Hickey.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. My name is Katie Hickey, and I'm a co-founder of the Fortissima Collective. The Fortissima Collective applied for this community grant for the first time, and yet was also just a few points below the threshold and not awarded a grant. I would like to request the City Council reconsider our proposal for funding. To tell you a little bit about us, since we're relatively new on the scene, the Fortissima Collective is a women-led 501c3 arts nonprofit dedicated to amplifying underrepresented voices in the arts. This could be women, single parents, members of the LGBTQ and BIPOC communities, as well as people with disabilities. We do this by creating and curating artist-driven performances and opportunities. Our core values are diversity and inclusion, access and education, quality and support, and ethical leadership. Our vision is to create safe, inclusive, and supportive spaces for high-quality performances while amplifying these underrepresented voices, establishing community collaborations, and providing accessible educational experiences. We just finished a superb first season featuring these underrepresented groups to standing room audiences, standing room only audiences for some of our performances. The Fortissima Collective, also known as the FF Collective, would like to now expand its reach to Encinitas. We have a very exciting season planned coming up, including the launch of our first education program for high school, university, and continuing education students, and would be very appreciative of the support of the City of Encinitas grant program. We would like to help fund these programs of our upcoming season, a few of which will be performed in Encinitas. The cost of our season opener concert, which is being planned for Encinitas and features both a queer Pacific Islander as well as a woman with an autoimmune disease, is about $12,800. And so a $5,000 grant or any other grant amount that you'd be willing to support us would be incredibly helpful. Providing safe and welcoming spaces for these artists to create and thrive is imperative and also in alignment with your goals. And we hope the City of Encinitas will help us in our endeavor. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you so much for considering our proposal.
Sorry, could you just tell me what number yours was? Do you remember?
Oh, let me see.
It's number 6.
Thank you.
Oh, no, that's Campana. I'm sorry. You're Fortissima, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Number 23.
23, that's
okay.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Wesley Burt.
Good evening. You guys can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Super. My name is Wesley Burt, and I am the founder and executive director of Equation Collaborative. We're a fairly new Encinitas-based nonprofit organization that operates a food security program called Plusbox. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the council for its consideration of an Encinitas Community Grant Award supporting our work. I do want to share that Plusbox delivers reliable access to healthy food to food insecure students and their families by partnering with schools to distribute boxes of fresh, healthy, nutrient-rich food on a weekly basis. We currently support between 500 and 600 households each week in 5 different North County communities, including this one. And so far this year, just in Encinitas, we have distributed 3,005 of those boxes with enough healthy food for more than 35,000 meals. The recommended funding will enable us to continue providing healthy food, enough for about 3,800 meals to children and families in Encinitas who don't have enough to meet their basic needs. Further, we hope to use the funds to increase our support for local farmers by integrating more locally grown produce into the Plus Box program, which will provide higher quality, fresher, and more nutrient-rich produce to food insecure families and support a more sustainable local food system. All that to say, on behalf of our team, our partners, volunteers, and the families we serve, I want to thank you guys again for your consideration and your support of our work. Thank you very much.
Wesley, what's the name of your organization again? Or number?
Equation Collaborative.
It's item number 21.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Next speaker is Jesse Goralski.
Hello there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, and if I could just share my screen, I have some visual support here. Okay. All right. Pardon me. Oops. Okay. All right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jessie, and I am the Community Liaison and Volunteer Coordinator at Solana Center for Environmental Innovation. And I just wanted to pop in and thank you for your continued support in our projects here at Solana Center. The community grant over the years has really helped us develop our home base as a place where we can provide our progressive Encinitas community with solutions to pressing environmental issues. So real quickly, for those who are listening and may not know us, Solana Center is an Encinitas-based environmental organization that focuses on soil, water, and waste diversion. And we work on the individual household level up to institutional levels to help folks realize their environmental goals. All right, so the Encinitas Community Grant over the years has been instrumental in helping us develop the community resources pictured here. In 2019, this grant supported Green Convene. The idea here is that instead of using disposable dinnerware at parties and events, community members can borrow Solana Center's reusable dinnerware, saving a lot of typical event waste from the landfill. After a COVID hiatus, this program is back. Then following a similar idea of shared resources, Encinitas helped us establish the Tool Lending Library program, where community members can check out gardening tools to beautify their homes, school gardens, community gardens, anything else. And this year, we are thankful to receive support to develop assets for our Green Living Tour led by our Eco Team docents, who are Solana Center's trained volunteer experts in sustainability. Through this educational tour, Encinitans can visit our home base, and our docents will walk them through ways to address issues around water, waste, soil health, and more with solutions they can implement at home. Some tour features are our vermicomposting row, household and mid-scale composting bins, rainwater harvesting, water-wise gardening, and more eco demonstrations to inspire and show people simple ways they can decarbonize their lifestyles. Again, thank you for your support, and I encourage everyone to check out the tours as they become available. And this is a picture of our test tour that we had here after our COVID hiatus. So thank you for your support.
Okay, before the next speaker, I'm going to need to bust in here and recuse myself from this item because my husband is employed by one of the organizations on this list. So my allocation, 1,800 or so, will need to be reallocated among the four of you. And I'll hand this over to the Deputy Mayor, Councilmember Mosca, to handle it from here.
Our next speaker is Andrew Utt.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
And now you can see me. Hello. Hi there, Mayor Blake Spear, City Council members. I am Andrew Utt, the Executive Director of the Institute of Contemporary Art San Diego. We are applicant number 42. For more than 20 years, the Lux Art Institute, now the ICA, has been a staple in the Encinitas community, providing educational opportunities to learn about the creative process, and in the last few years, focusing on global issues that affect our community, such as migration, ecology, Black identity, Indigenous histories, and more. We do this through our exhibitions, classes, events, partnerships, and outreach programs to schools in Encinitas and across the county. Most recently, we have made a concerted commitment to support Art Night Encinitas by increasing access, providing engaging, thought-provoking programming, and marketing what wonderful arts we have in Encinitas. This effort has been thoroughly supported by our diverse members and patrons, as well as regional businesses. We're incredibly appreciative of Colette Murphy and thank the Arts Commission who have supported our efforts, ultimately providing 60% of the funds we requested. In total, ICA hosts 8 free events during Art Night Encinitas throughout the year, and we are asking for your support of 2. We would love to see the city's commitment to our institution by increasing the award by $2,250 to the total request of $5,000. We understand that there is a direct financial impact in the local economy from our events, but human ROI is stronger and more lasting. At ICA, we consider the generational impact that our organization can have on the local community by creating future creative leaders like yourselves. Thank you for your ongoing support of this transformational organization.
Next speaker is Rachel Graves.
Hi again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, I'm Rachel Graves. I oppose using taxpayer dollars to fund the community grant to number 19, Encinitas for Equality. E4E founder proclaimed, quote, E4E is proud of the work we were able to accomplish in the Encinitas Equity Committee. She goes on to describe the work E4E did through the Equity Committee. It is inappropriate, if not a violation of our codes, for one nonprofit to have representation on a city committee. And yet that is what was done. 2 of her committee colleagues, I just found out, were the evaluators of these applications for this grant. And for these reasons, the city and E4E have established a conflict of interest and grants should not be funded to this group. Not only would funding this grant be unethical, it would also be immoral. E4E is an organization whose founder and directors regularly denigrate, insult, disparage, and belittle Encinitans. They tend to attack mostly women, senior citizens, emergency responders, and public servants. Marlon Taylor deprecates the sheriffs, saying they, quote, aren't necessarily good at what they do, unquote. Molly Woods Drake slanders our elected school board trustee, calling him a white supremacist and a racist with no basis at all. Teresa Beauchamp calls critics a loud and aggressive minority. What does this group stand for, E4E, if not for the minority of mostly women and elders? Side note, she was my family's PA for decades. What an about face that is. And Marlon Taylor also told my mom that she must be a, quote, exception to the rule because the rest of the town who looks like my mom, white, had their home handed to them on a silver platter like Blake Spear and Hinsey. And just yesterday, when Steve Mache, a veteran firefighter, brought up the preferential treatment that E4E received when the city approved a delinquent permit application, Lydell Fleming of E4E accused him of being uneducated. Molly Woods Drake told my family to leave and take our votes with us, even suggesting we move to Idaho and Arizona. Marlon Taylor again belittled a female friend of mine, telling her it must be exhausting standing up for what she believes in this town. What's his point? Is he trying to intimidate and silence her? I think so. Finally, Molly Woods Drake has come before you at city council chambers, urging you to not consider the comments made by those of us who are white, cisgender, heterosexual, and homeowner. Those are her words. I vehemently oppose the city supporting an organization who constantly attacks citizens, calling them out for their race, calling them out for their gender, their sexual orientation, and their homeowner status. This council has discussed many times the desire to make Encinitas a welcoming place for all. We've even spent over $100,000 hiring consultants to achieve this goal. It costs nothing for you tonight to deny any and all association with an organization espousing racial and sexual discrimination and division in Encinitas. Thank you.
And then I do not see any other speakers on this item. Deputy Mayor.
All right, if there's nobody else, no other member of the public that would like to speak on this, we'll bring it back to the city council. I think in years past, what we've done is we've gone around the dais and kind of split up the funds and then kind of divvied it up individually. So if we wanted to do that, it sounds like we have $9,130, and we would divide that by 4 members. So we can, if we want to do that, we can just go around the dais or go around the boxes here, and then just you can state who you want to allocate your amount to, which I guess is $22.80 to $50, if my math is correct. $2,282.50, I think, is divided 9,130 divided by 4. And then you can let us know what you would like to allocate that to. So I'm going to call in the order of the hands that are up. I see staff has their hand up first, so I'm going to go to that box first.
Thank you, Councilmember Mosca. We are hoping that you would kindly allocate in whole dollars. So that might mean that it's $2,282 for 2 of you and $2,283 for the other 2. It generally makes things easier for the accounting for the grant recipients and as well as city staff.
As opposed to saying, I just want to divide it among 5 or 6 entities, you want me to do the math and just say, this is the amount that I want for each organization?
As opposed to, having the 50 cents, if it is at all possible to keep it in whole dollars.
Got it.
That would be ideal.
I think I'm going to go with 2 of them that are a buck up, that eliminate the 50 cents per. So I'm going to stick with, I think that we should all just manage it that way.
All right.
If you don't mind, Deputy Mayor Mosca, I do have a clarifying question.
Sure.
Staff. I may have missed this in the presentation, but I saw in the staff report that there's an allocation, a funding recommendation that goes by the number of points, and I see several of these grant applications that scored high enough to get a percentage but got 0. And I'm wondering, remind me what causes that?
I would defer to the panel chair, Arts Commissioner Bardo Valenzuela, who is on this evening.
So the guidelines
good evening, Councilmember Tony Krantz. So yes, the guidelines on the sheet are for guidance, but we did come up with our panel did come up with a range. So we wanted to find out the organizations at least 50%, so the programming would be more viable. So giving them 30%, 50%, I think would help them and benefit them to put the programming through. And we did have a very large number of good applications, so they tended to score higher, and that caused us to to have the higher application have 50%, and then the next tier would be 75%, and then below 65 and 55, just so we can give as much money as we could to the most to the most amount of organizations as possible.
I appreciate that. I guess looking at, so for example, 3 and 4, one had 83 and the other one had 80. One got 2750 grant and the other got 0. So it does kind of create, there's one that's 79 that was, so as somebody who was a solid average C student, this is not my preferred way of seeing it happen, because it shuts out some good projects. But I appreciate the work that you guys were doing, and it was your prerogative to make these recommendations. So I will try and work it out when we're allocating. Here are the 9130 that's been set aside.
Councilmember Krantz, since you have the floor, did you want to start us off with allocations?
Yes. So I would do $457 to the number 2 Assistance League, and $457 to Los Angelitos, number 28. And 456 to 41 Rancho Coastal. And number 23, 456. I think that's how much is that? Did I do that right? I have one more, I believe, at 456.
You would have an additional, if you are dividing it evenly, you would have another 456 you could allocate.
So that would go to number 6, Campana. So 2, 6, 23, 28, and 41. And that takes some zeros up to something, and takes my favorite organizations. I have to admit, I have these favorites, Los Angelitos and the Assistance League. Both organizations take very good care of people who are much less fortunate than most in our community. And I thank them for that.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Krantz. Let's go to Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. So I would like to give number 6 Campana Studios $800. I would like to give Bayside Baile Folklorico, which is number 4, $250. I'd like to give Los Angelitos $450. The Assistance League $150. As a former study buddy, I've got to give Nancy Logan. Yep.
I just was hoping, could you slow down just a little bit? And
Sure.
We got number 6 for $800 for Campana, and number 4, $250 for Bayside. The third one we heard $450, but I apologize, I did not catch which organization.
That was for Los Angelitos.
Thank you. Number 23.
What?
Los Angelitos? Oh, 28. No, 28.
And that was how much?
450.
Yes. And then 150 for the Assistance League, which is number 2. And then 150 for the Study Buddies. That's number 48.
Yes, 150.
And then number 42, the ICA, $200. And then I would like to give the rest to the Fortissima Collective.
I'm working on that. Hold on 1 second. So that would be $422.
Yes.
And that's number 23. Okay.
So is that it for Councilmember Hensy? Has she expended all of her?
Yes, she has.
All right, perfect. It gets harder. It gets harder. Sorry.
I was gonna just let you know that each of the next two of you have 2,283.
All right. It gets harder and harder, Councilmember Lyons. It sounds like a lot of us are sharing the same values here. And so some of the groups have already exceeded their ask. So you're up, Councilmember Lyons.
Okay, good. Thank you. So first of all, I want to say 55 amazing nonprofits and projects here, and that's just so impressive. Just seeing all their names and all the amazing projects that they're proposing is really inspirational to me. I'm impressed by their submissions, and I know how hard it is to select, because when I was on the Environmental Commission, I was our representative to select these for these grants. And I think Nevardo did a good job of explaining how complex the process is. But when it is weighted a little bit towards what your top choices are. So I also want to just say briefly that I think it's really hard for all the judges to not have any conflicts of interest. And if that occurs when you're judging on this kind of a community grant selection, then often a person might need to recuse themselves from the vote on one or another one of the projects if they have a conflict of interest. There is a process to do that. So I would like to start, and I think my math is going to add up, but I'd like to start by identifying applicant number 8, which is Cardiff by the Sea Chamber. And this is for their wayfinding signage. And I'd like to dedicate $526 to increase their amount of funding. Next, I'd like to identify applicant number 2, Assistance League, San Diego. Deputy Mayor Mosca, when you were saying that there's someone who's gone beyond their request, I was kind of tallying them up, and I don't think they have yet. But if I'm incorrect there, perhaps I could be corrected. But for the Assistance League, applicant number 2, I'd like to dedicate $500. For applicant number 6, which is Campania Studios, who did not get the score that allowed them to get any funding, I would also then, as others have, like to dedicate $456. And along the same line, for applicant number 4, Bayside Community Center, associated with Ballet Folklorico, I'd like to dedicate $400 for their culturally significant programs. And then I believe I have $400 remaining, and that I'd like to dedicate to applicant 42, which is ICA, and that would be $400.
You actually have one more dollar, Councilmember.
Oh, $4.
I'll take it.
We could just add it to that last entry, please.
Or 01 for IC.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we have all of Councilmember Lyons' allocations?
Yes.
All right, and I too want to just echo what Councilmember Lyons just said about just the breadth of organizations in our city, new and old, some that have been kind of really at it for some time and delivering some really amazing benefits and added value in our community, and some that are brand new that we heard from tonight that are really impressive. So it makes this, I mean, I'm happy that we're doing it, and sometimes it makes it a little bit difficult because there's such amazing organizations out there that are doing so much in our community. So if you can help me out, I'm going to start off with several different organizations, and I think that just saying trying to evenly split it among them is how I'm going to try to tackle this, and it's going to be about $456 per entity. And so the first one I'm going to allocate to is item applicant number 2, which is Assistance League of Rancho San Diego, and they run the Operation School Bell. And I've gone to their program just about every year that they've done it out of Target, and I can see how much it benefits school-age children in Encinitas. You got to see their faces running into the areas and with their family and getting clothing that they need for school. So I think it's just a really amazing program, and I'm happy to support it again this year with an allocation of $456. I'm also really intrigued by number 6, Campanata Studios, and everything that they've done so far and everything that they're looking to do in the future. So I'd like to allocate $456 to them.
Excuse me just a moment.
Sure.
In our quick math, as we were rushing through, Councilmember Hinsey generously allocated 2,482, and it is our error in not catching that until now. So I apologize.
Councilmember Hensey, trying to use up some of my dollars.
She's just exceedingly generous.
Well, the last one that
That's what you
What'd
get
you
for
say,
going
Tony?
last, Joe. Yeah.
Exactly. Go ahead, Councilmember Hensey.
the last one I said just donate the remaining to Fortissima. So if it was too much, I don't know exactly how much too much it was, but
Got it. Okay.
you can scale that one back.
Couple $100, it sounds like.
So 222. Okay. Whew. Thank you. Please accept our apologies.
Not a problem.
All right, the next one I'm going to go to is Meals on Wheels, and that's number 30. I've gone out with them every year, and it's unbelievable the amount of volunteers that they have that help out and in what they're doing in terms of bringing meals to our seniors in our city. And there's so many seniors that need their service and depend upon their service. So I'm going to add $450 to that item.
So $981 remaining.
All right, and then item number 51, St. Andrew's Pantry, Food Pantry. They are helping a lot of food insecure people in Encinitas, and so I'm going to help them with an allocation of $456. And then 21, Equation Collaborative. I don't know a tremendous amount about what they're doing, but I really enjoyed the presentation. I feel like it's a necessary program for our city. Again, food insecurity is something that's real, and I think that this sounds like this organization is really trying to get at that in a very niche way. So I'm going to allocate $456 to that. How much do I have left?
500 and, oh wait, hold on 1 second. Double check, $69.
$69. I'm going to give the remainder to number 48, which is San Diego for Drug-Free Youth for their Study Buddy program.
Wonderful.
So,
thank you all. You have allocated all of the available dollars.
awesome. With your help, thank you so much. Any further questions or comments by my colleagues? Councilmember Hensey, you have your hand up, but it was you don't have the question. All right. Unless I'm wrong on this, city attorney, we don't need a motion. This was just direction, and it's a receive and file.
Actually, you should have a motion to approve the allocations.
All right. So we will vote on it then. I'll entertain a motion.
So move.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Hensey and a second by Councilmember Kranz. Let's vote.
Councilmember Hensey?
Yes.
Councilmember Kranz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear is absent due to a recusal. Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Can somebody on staff invite Mayor Blakespear back into the meeting? Oh, she's here.
I'm back.
Perfect. All right. Well, I hand over the gavel to you.
Okay, nicely done. I watched the whole thing.
Perfect.
You did a great job, as did everybody else.
Except for Councilmember Hensy trying to take some of my money.
Okay, we're on to item 10E, which is the safe parking extension. So City Council review and consideration of the continuation of Jewish Family Service Safe Parking Program at Encinitas Community and Senior Center for a maximum of 25 vehicles accommodating households living in their cars for up to 3 years through June 30th, 2025. So I'll hand this over to Housing Services Manager Gutierrez.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Jennifer Gates, Planning Manager. I'll be presenting tonight for Christian Gutierrez. So as noted before you tonight is the consideration of the Safe Parking Program continuation. On October 13th, 2021, City Council had approved the site use agreement for the Safe Parking Program to be at the Community and Senior Center. JFS has submitted a letter of interest requesting the City of Encinitas consider an extension to the current use agreement at the Senior Center, and this will be subject to the approval of the extension of their grant funding that they are going after. Per the agreement, JFS has continued to track their program measures and reported outcomes to the City of Encinitas on a monthly basis and post data on their website. According to JFS reports from February of 2020 through April of 2022, the program has provided services to 154 individuals, 38 of which were Encinitas residents. City staff, with the assistance of the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, continue to track crime statistics as identified in the use agreement as well. Staff has not been informed of any concerns related to the users or operation of the safe parking program. In addition, staff and JFS are in communication with the San Diego Union High School District and have provided a tour to its interim superintendent. City staff and JFS will continue to work with the school district in connection with the safe parking program if it is continued. Staff is recommending that City Council consider authorizing the extension of the SAFE program up to 3 years. If proposing an extension, then adopt resolution number 2022-59 and authorize the city manager to execute an amendment to the agreement with the desired term extension. This concludes staff's report. JFS staff, Lieutenant Lawrence, and the sheriff from the Sheriff Department and myself are available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. How many do we have public speakers on this item?
So far I see 2. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Yeah, we're getting more. So the first speaker is Joshua Lazarson. So far we have 5.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take public speakers.
Yeah, Joshua Lazarson is joining right now.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I don't want to say much about the safe parking program's status, apart from noting that it's been quite successful in its new location. There have been no problems that I'm aware of, and it's meeting real human need. I would note that for all the hue and cry this program raised initially, my attempt to find negative commentary in the current year comes up empty. Absent the generation of fake news, there is no claim to be made that the program is anything but a success. I thank you for your courage and foresight in making this happen. In my brief time before you, I'm more interested in talking about larger truths that govern how we choose to treat one another, allocate our resources, and think about our responsibilities. We're living in a moment of American reckoning, caught between white supremacist notions of some never-existent race-pure paradise and the realities of a deeply troubled, highly resourced, dramatically imbalanced nation where the rich buy spaceships while the rest of us reckon on the ground with the realities of deepening income inequality, climate crisis, tremendous inequities driven by various bigotries, degradation of democracy, a lack of affordable housing, and a clearly deepening mental health crisis that seems a reasonable response to these realities, at least among the sane. A much repeated economic fact is that nearly half of American adults cannot afford a $500 crisis, a medical emergency, a broken fridge, a car in need of repair. In this town that we call home, there are many people who've paid a $500 dinner bill. Many of us have much. As individuals and as a community, rather than worrying about how we keep people out, I think that we should concern ourselves with how we can act to help those with real need and little or no safety net. The greatest human reality is that of interdependency. Even if we think we don't like one another, we know at some level that we need one another. Let's act as if we understand that. Approve the Safe Parking Program extension and consider other actions we can take to make us a community knitted together through our common acts of equity and decency. Thank you for your attention.
Next speaker is Teresa Beauchamp.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Honorable Mayor Blake Spear and council members, I commend you and Jewish Family Services for your leadership in providing a safe, overnight, secure location for our recently unhoused neighbors. I'm a close neighbor to the Safe Parking Program and strongly support its 3-year extension at its current location. Case managers have navigated 2/3 of participants back into permanent housing. This program clearly serves the public good and causes no harm. You are all right from the beginning. A 2022 forthcoming study will soon be available to the public, completed by UC San Diego researchers Dr. Meryl Rabinowitz-Bussell, Dr. Leslie Lewis, and Todd Levinson. The title is Evaluation of Jewish Family Service of San Diego Safe Parking Program, a 2-year summary research report. Here are 2 key takeaways from this study. Number 1, people using the JFS Safe Parking programs defy stereotypes. Participants are like the rest of us and in the midst of a housing crisis. They are cashiers, security guards, caregivers, and teachers' aides. Over a quarter are past retirement age. Many have college and advanced degrees. They have lower rates of both mental health problems and substance use disorders compared to the general public, defying common stereotypes about the causes of homelessness. Number 2, the causes of homelessness are simultaneously personal and structural. Participants have lost housing as a result of a series of shocks that include loss of a job, medical crisis, loss of loved one to death or divorce, domestic violence, loss of a naturally occurring affordable housing unit, coupled with a lack of wealth and social supports that might otherwise keep them afloat. The broader context is the high level of low incomes contributing to lack of savings and unavailability of affordable housing. Let's continue to provide this respite and support for our most vulnerable neighbors. Thank you all so much.
Next speaker is Jayshree Gherkin.
Hi, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Hi, this is Steve Gherkin. My Zoom name was incorrect there. So good evening. Let me get to my thing. Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm Steve Gherkin, an Encinitas resident. As the City of Encinitas and the Jewish Family Services of San Diego co-applicants on the Safe Parking Program, propose to extend the term of the agreement to maintain a safe parking lot homeless shelter at the Encinitas Community Center for another 3 years in the interest of full transparency and an open process for use of city resources. I have some key concerns I would like answered, starting with the funding of the Safe Parking Lot Homeless Shelter. Staff reports of May 15th and June 15th state that there are no fiscal considerations for this agenda item. 2 staff reports in the June 9, 2022 letter from JFS to the city state that the HHAP grants have been submitted. In past years, a budget of $255,000 from HHAP grants have been used to operate the SPP in Encinitas. At the May 22, 2022 presentation by the San Diego Regional Task Force on Homelessness, no grants were awarded to the Jewish Family Services. Would the council please ask the Jewish Family Services to explain how they will fund the Encinitas Safe Parking Program after the June 22nd HAP grant finishes in 15 days. Also, I would request that the City Council agree to place on a future council agenda any matters of fiscal impact to the city related to the safe parking program. Let's talk about results from the homeless parking lot. It's been a focal point of the city's homeless action plan that the homeless parking program helps to serve the residents of Encinitas newly facing homelessness. But the most recent data from the Jewish Family Services on page 21 of the staff report reports that only one resident is from Encinitas, 3% of the participants, and only one resident is from North County. This is a significant change in the promised participants in the safe parking program, where originally 25% were described as being from Encinitas. Would the council please ask staff and JFS to discuss this significant change in the demographics of participants in the program? Let's talk about regional versus local homeless parking. It's the concern of Encinitas residents that the safe parking program is attracting homeless from out of the region. This staff report supports this concern, reporting 97% of participants are not from North County, San Diego. Would the council please address how operating a safe parking program in Encinitas, where the vast majority of participants are not even regional and are not from North County, San Diego, how is that consistent with the Encinitas Homeless Action Plan? Let's talk about violations of the use agreement. JFS has agreed to utilize 25 parking spaces nightly to shelter participants in the lower lot of the community center. Every night, JFS uses security guards, signages, and temporary restraining tape to block access to almost 100 parking spaces in the southern parking lots. Would the council please ask JFS to address this violation of the use agreement? Another violation we should talk about. JFS agreed to abide by the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Agreement program and place vehicle waste drip trays under every vehicle in the parking lot under user agreement section 2.7. There have been no drip trays used for participants' cars parked in the parking lot. Would the council please ask JFS to address this violation of the use agreement?
That is your 3 minutes.
Can I finish with my final recommendation? One sentence?
Yes, if it's one sentence, you can go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's my recommendation to return this agenda item to staff, the city manager, and the Jewish Family Services with recommendations for JFS to provide our city with specific guaranteed funding sources for each year requested for the extension of the operation of the program. Without firm financial commitments, it would be a poor decision to approve an unfunded 3-year extension that cannot possibly be voted upon here, much less any continuation of the program, as per the contractual terms of the current and proposed user agreements. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bob Kent.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Bob Kent, Encinitas resident, member of Keys for Homes. I support the proposed extension of the contract between JFS and the city to ensure the continuation of the safe parking program, along with continuing regular progress reports to the City Council. We have a housing affordability crisis regionally and also here in Encinitas. Without a strong financial footing, many lower income households are living one paycheck or car repair or medical crisis away from not being able to pay their rent. Also, the potential for future residential evictions may very well increase over the coming months as rising rents and a lack of affordable homes are now coupled with very high broad-based inflation. Increasing costs for basic items like food, utilities, and gasoline will only further exacerbate our lower income households' rent burden. And I think this is particularly acute for seniors on a fixed income. So now more than ever, having a safe, reliable, and dignified place to sleep at night is critically important for those individuals and families who are unfortunately living in their vehicles, many who are experiencing homelessness for the first time, and who are working, including children and so many seniors. The Safe Parking Program is truly the last rung of homelessness prevention. The program fully vets all clients, and through JFS Case Management Services has demonstrated success by helping individuals first regain their footing and then find their own individual pathway back to stable housing, with a primary emphasis on the security and safety of both the clients and the surrounding neighbors. So thank you to JFS and thank you to the Mayor and City Council for your leadership and action in helping our unhoused individuals and families. Let's continue to do our part by helping others who are less fortunate. Please vote yes to extend the operation of the Safe Parking Program. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jim Stuyven.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Jim Stuyven. I'm a member of the St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. And we are located just on Ballure Drive, just down from the community center where the safe parking lot is currently located. And in our outreach programs at St. Andrew's, we serve a population, many of whom are homeless and need the access to the safe parking program in order to be able to be secure in the place where they are forced to live, which is in their cars. Unlike the earlier speaker with respect to was quoting some statistics, I don't have the document in front of me, but I did have the opportunity to review the statistics that were submitted by Jewish Family Services. And I reached a different conclusion than the earlier speaker regarding the percentage of people from North County who were being served. This safe parking lot at the community center is the only safe parking facility in the North County area. And the stats that I reviewed seem to indicate that the vast majority of the people using this facility were from North County. Otherwise, as has been indicated by one of the other prior speakers, there have been successful outcomes for the persons who have been using these facilities. And as the sheriff has reported, and as we as neighbors can report, there have been no problems in association with the use of this safe parking lot. So I do urge you to support this resolution 10E and extend the safe parking lot program for those persons who need it so desperately. Thank you.
And next speaker is Judy Burlfine. If anyone else wishes to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
Hi, this is Judy Burlfine. I want to support the Safe Parking Program extension, and I thank you for putting this program in place. It's heartening to know that many people who participated now have homes. They could have likely not only lost their homes originally, but lost their cars and been on the streets, and to know that they're safe in homes just like I am right now is incredibly comforting to see the generosity of our city. Thank you. That's it.
Mayor, that does conclude speakers.
Okay, thank you. Well, I remain a steadfast supporter of this program. I'm very proud of the city of Encinitas, the city council, the people who are speaking tonight in favor of it. All of the community groups that rallied when we first talked about it and continue to participate in supporting it. I really am grateful to Jewish Family Service for all that you do to help us, to help people, our neighbors, our unsheltered neighbors. Some of the speakers tonight spoke very eloquently. I really appreciated what Teresa said about people our recently unhoused neighbors end up in the parking lot for personal and structural reasons, which I think was a really great way to state that. Lack of wealth and social support on top of a personal crisis. And I really am completely in support of us continuing this. And I wanted to just ask Chris or city staff, if you recall, the staff reports refers to February 2020 through April of 2022. Is that when we first started it, was February of 2020? So it's just been a few months over 2 years. Is that accurate, or did we start it in 2019?
No, we started it in 2020, February of 2020.
Okay, so that is from the very beginning of the program. Okay. I am going to call on my colleagues to make their comments, but I'm also going to make the motion here that we do extend this for 3 years and continue to help our neighbors who need it, especially now that it's at the Encinitas Senior and Community Center, which I think is a good location for it, given the other social services we provide at our Senior and Community Center. So let me call on my colleagues, but that is a motion. So Councilmember Lyons.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Mosca. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to start by complimenting my colleagues and our city for supporting this program and bringing it forward and standing by it. I was, when we were considering the Senior and Community Center, I was concerned that it would not be enough of a sanctuary for the program to be successful. And with Jewish Family Services, good efforts and good work, and the coordination with the school district and with the city, I think that has been a complete success there. So I want to thank all the participants, and my concerns ended up being unfounded. I think that this program does a very good job. I think the Jewish Family Services are an amazing service provider. I think the coordination with Oakcrest Middle School was successful, and I think when you put your heart and your head behind stuff, like good coordination, it can get done, and I saw that getting done. So again, there I do want to compliment our city and the Jewish Family Services and also the school district. I think things have gone smoothly and effectively. I think that also that the sheriff's presence and the sheriff's attention to detail, it has been successful. So I want to compliment them as well. So just a few other comments. I believe that this program fills a need to keep people from becoming homeless. And I just want to point to a few, what I feel are compelling statistics or data. And I know there's a lot of data here, so it may be a little confusing because there's a good amount of data, but I just want to point to the fact that I love the data. There's 130 households have been served, 33 households have been housed, and 25 families have been reconciled, reconnected. What's the word? Reunified. To me, that's a huge success. Those are people who would have gone into a homeless situation, likely fallen into homelessness, and we were able to catch them before they did. And I'm so happy to see such great public input and support. I believe this program achieves many of our city goals, and I'm grateful that we have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kranz.
Thank you. I too want to express my appreciation for the people who speak on this issue continually and raise the issue related to providing some pretty fundamental social services to folks that are in need. And so they continue to live their faith out, and I very much appreciate that. It has always been very difficult for me to not be able to fully support this program because of what I would call process issues. And I had supported the location previously, but when I found out that how little coordination we did with the school district, I thought that was unacceptable. So not surprising to learn that during the time that it's been at the community center, there have been no issues related to its co-location with a junior high school. So in this particular case, I don't, I think it's tried and proven to be successful. The numbers, I think, bear out that success. I think that the question about demographics is one that we've known all along, that this is a regional program and that we couldn't wouldn't exclude anybody from outside our city. And I think that too is appropriate. I think that this particular demographic of the unhoused is unique in that they're mobile and they can drive from Escondido to Encinitas to get a good night's sleep in their car without having to worry about being attacked or having somebody knock on the window for whatever reason. So that is, I think, a statement of the need for more of these programs around the region. So it's my hope that one of these days the surrounding jurisdictions will step up and implement a program of their own so that people don't have to drive as far. So the other question, I don't know if JFS is here tonight, but there were a couple of things. One is, what is the situation with the grant? And how will this be funded if there is no grant?
Good evening. Hi, I'm Chris Olson, Chief of Staff for Jewish Family Service. Thank you, Councilmember, for the question. Our application is still pending with the Regional Task Force on Homelessness, who is the administrator for the state's HAP, Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Grant Program. We have every indication to believe that funding would continue, but I cannot say that we know for certain the amount or at this point. I will add that the timing, although short, isn't really unusual given our past experience, and that the agreement before you for your consideration this evening is contingent on the grant being renewed or on Jewish Family Service finding some other way to support the program, meaning the city doesn't bear any risk for funding with the proposal for you this evening.
So the statement in the staff report about no fiscal, whatever the phraseology is there, is accurate because JFS is going to back up this program if necessary.
That's correct. I think there's actually a net positive impact of $1 to the city.
Okay. Wow, that's great. The other, as long as you're on, the other issue, and I don't know how Steve knows this, but he's asserting that there are no drip trays under the cars, even though that is a condition of the location of the program here at the community center. Do you have any information about that and why that isn't being done? Maybe Jennifer knows.
I don't have any information that I can tell you right now, but I'd be happy to look into it and research the accuracy and if so, the reasoning behind it.
And apparently he's asserting that we're putting the caution tape up in a larger area. I don't know, as long as nobody's trying to park there, I'm not sure why that matters, but I think it's important that we operate this per the agreement as much as possible. So that would be my preference, and hopefully between your organization and staff, we could do everything we can to make that happen. I do appreciate the case management that you provide. I think these people, are coming to your program because they are interested in finding a place to live other than their car. So I appreciate the effort, and I will be supporting the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, I'm seconding on the motion, and I'm supporting the motion. I think that certainly over the years, this program has proven that it's valuable to the city, and that it is indeed a solution for a whole lot of folks. I want to thank JFS, Jewish Family Services of San Diego, for bringing this program to us at no cost to the residents of Encinitas, just all benefit, no cost. And also to the benefactors, the folks that donate money to Jewish Family Services who have actually helped fund this program as well, because I would imagine that there's cost beyond the grant, and if it sounds like the grant's going to get approved, but if it doesn't, and there's other ways of doing it, I'm sure that that the folks that support Jewish Family Services are also going to be supporting it in the future as well. And so, so I think I see this as just a complete benefit to our city. It came at a time when we really needed it. During the pandemic, there were a lot of folks that found themselves sleeping in vehicles. And with inflation on the rise and more people can't afford gas, we're finding more and more people sleeping in their cars, especially seniors. This program has not faded in necessity. It's only increased in need. And so I'm happy that we have you guys operating this Jewish Family Services, happy that you're operating it, happy that you're helping us provide a solution to folks that are sleeping in their vehicles. I'm happy that there are other volunteers and people that are helping out at this parking lot. I'm happy that there are other faith-based organizations that are stepping up and also providing services to those that are sleeping in their vehicles at this site. Again, it has shown that it doesn't cost the city any money. It has shown that there's no law enforcement has been engaged, and there's no impact, there's no issues. We've been able to work with the school district to ensure that there are no issues, and so it just seems like it's been a success. You know, it's a solution that's a success. It doesn't cost us any money, so I'm proud and proud to support it, and it's really easy to support it because it's such a benefit to our community. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris, do you want to say anything else?
No, except an expression of gratitude to the community and volunteers and this council.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just say that when I did a tour of the new site, you know, there's a natural braking place where people will pull in. You know, you can't just have 25 spots with no room to drive toward the 25 spots, you know, so I don't think it's being like overutilized. It's a sort of a natural segment with a way to keep that part segregated from the rest of the parking lot. So, you know, to me, it really made sense the way it's been organized there. I just wanted to make sure and state that.
Then, you know, maybe we should change the operation agreement so that it states that. I just think that, you know, the agreement should match the way it's being operated. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're not letting in more than 25 cars, but I mean, it's just, yeah. So anyway, okay. So there's a motion and a second. So let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next item, which is a public hearing. Then we're on item 10F for consideration of adopting resolutions authorizing the annual indexed adjustment to the cost of services schedule to planning, engineering, and marine safety services. So we'll turn this over to Assistant Finance Director Gallup.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. The item before you tonight is a public hearing for consideration of adopting resolutions authorizing the annual indexed adjustments to the cost of services schedule, otherwise known as user fees. Sorry. A little background regarding these fees. The city's consultant, Wildan Financial Services, completed a comprehensive independent user fee study last year. It was noted that cost recovery levels for development services were comparatively low. To be comparable to nearby agencies, Wildan recommended an initial fee increase of 10%, followed by a 15% increase the following year. The consultant also recommended that the city include an inflationary factor to ensure that fees are adjusted as direct and indirect costs increase. It was also recommended that fees be capped at an 80% cost recovery rate. The initial fee increase was approved by the City Council on August 11th, 2021, and the fees became effective October 1st, 2021. State law requires that a public agency hold a public hearing to affirm any proposed fee increase, including those that are indexed. Proposed fee schedules are included as attachments 1 and 2 to the agenda report. The proposed fees are the consultant's recommended fees for the second year, plus the 7% CPI for 2021 applied to the fee. Marine safety fees for special event staffing are calculated differently and reflect the fully burdened personnel cost for the next fiscal year, and the CPI is not applied to the hourly rate. Staff estimates that the fiscal impact of adopting the new fees will be approximately $105,000 based on anticipated development activity next fiscal year. The recommended action is to adopt resolutions 2022-72, 2022-73, and 2022-76, approving planning services, engineering services, development processing fees, and marine safety services fees for fiscal year 2022-23. Staff is available to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing, so I think we need to
Go through the disclosures.
go through the disclosures, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Krantz,
Nothing to disclose.
Councilmember Lyons,
Nothing to disclose.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Nothing to disclose.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Nothing to disclose.
Okay.
Do we have any public comments on this?
If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand.
And I will open the public hearing.
And we do not have anyone raising their hand to speak on this item.
Okay, I will go ahead and move approval. I'll close the public hearing and go and move approval.
And a second.
Okay, Councilmember Krantz?
I do have a question about the, and it's more of a question for my colleagues about the issue related to the appeal, the cost of an appeal. And I think that it's important that we, not make it financially punitive from the standpoint of an average citizen filing an appeal. And so, I know that appeals cost a lot of money. I get that. So the recovery idea is a part of this, and it's not that the amount that it's going up doesn't seem all that significant in terms of that cost, but it does raise the question about whether there will be some members of the community who feel that a project should be appealed and won't be able to do it because they can't come up with the money. So I wonder about that particular fee, whether we leave that alone.
I'll just answer your comment, Councilmember Krantz. I mean, from my perspective, because I have voiced that in previous years, that same idea about access. And I guess, the fee has been, from my perspective, this amount is reasonable and I feel comfortable with it. I think our fees for appeals are really a lot lower than almost every other city that I'm aware of. And this fee is nowhere near cost recovery. It's tremendously expensive for our staff to go through the process of putting together the information for an appeal. And I think it's not, to me, it doesn't seem unreasonable to have this increase to the appeal amount. So I feel comfortable with it. And it hasn't gone up for a while. So like everything's going up.
Yes, the other issue that I would like to ask is, I know that development impact fees are not on this agenda, but there was a point made in an email today that traffic impact fees, the cost of mitigating traffic issues around our community obviously have gone through the roof. And I don't ever remember having an opportunity to raise those fees. But I think that's something that I would like to ask the city manager to either let me know how that, what it would take to have consideration of that particular, those fees that we charge as mitigation for proposed development. So
why don't we ask the city manager to get back to us with some information about that? Because I would like to hear that too. Okay. Well, thank you. So did we have a second?
I'll second.
Yes, I did.
We did have a second, yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, then let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Crayons,
yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now we are on to the budget. So this is the big mama on our agenda tonight. So approval of fiscal year 2023 or 2022-2023 operating budget and fiscal 2022-2023 to 2026-2027 CIP budget and financial plan. So let me hand this over to, is it contact person, finance manager Sanderson, or yes? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council members. The item for your consideration is the adoption of the proposed fiscal year 22-23 operating and capital budget. I'm Kelly Sanderson, Finance Manager, and I have a presentation that highlights changes made since the budget introduction and summarizes totals included in the proposed budget. I would like to begin by thanking City Council, community members, and all city departments for your valuable contributions to the budget development process. We've reached the final milestone, authorizing spending through appropriations before the beginning of new fiscal year starting July 1st. When the budget was introduced on May 11th, 2022, Council did not direct any changes impacting the proposed totals. During the same meeting, Council approved a new labor agreement with the Encinitas Firefighters Association. This has no budgetary impact because negotiated estimates were already included in the proposed budget. However, additional updates were made for purposes of clarity, which do not affect proposed totals, such as showing how the 20 million Leucadia Streetscape and 7 million Pacific View CIP appropriations span fiscal years 22 and 23, and updating project names to improve readability between different CIP schedules. A few highlights. Overall, the fiscal year 23 budget incorporates direction provided by Council at strategy and budget workshops held in March and April. The budget is balanced and continues to promote fiscal sustainability with revenues exceeding expenditures. It fully funds policy required contingency and budget stabilization reserves, honors negotiated labor contracts, meets pension obligations, and funds priority capital projects. And if the proposed budget is approved, the general fund unassigned funding ending fund balance is projected to be $2.1 million at the end of fiscal year 23. Budget totals for all funds include $116.4 million in estimated revenues, $105.6 in proposed expenditures, and $22.5 million of funding for capital and work projects. Of this total, the general fund budget includes $92.3 million in revenues, $82.8 million in expenditures, and $6.9 million in capital and work projects. The operating budget includes additional items identified during the budget workshops, which we highlight again, such as trail maintenance, school crossing guards, contract land surveyor and traffic control plan review, fire radios, and an additional $100,000 for mental health and homeless action plan. The city's capital improvement program shows $111 million program through fiscal year 2026-27 for all funds. Currently, this fiscal year, we have 36 million of that, and 20 million is in Leucadia's streetscape for future phases. We aligned the appropriation when we expected the loan to be approved. And then we also have already appropriated $500,000 to Pacific View for the design and construction support services. The proposed 22.5 capital budget for fiscal year 23 appropriates funding for over 40 projects, but some of the key ones include the remaining 6.5 million appropriation for Pacific View for a total of 7,750,000 for the rail corridor quiet zone, and additional funding for mobility enhancements, Highway 101 cycle track extension to K Street, increased funding for the annual street paving contract, and Rancho Santa Fe road improvements. The recommended action tonight is to adopt the following resolutions: approving operating and CIP appropriations, determining the appropriations limit, and approving the position titles and pay ranges for the city employees for fiscal year 2022-23. And staff is available if you have additional questions.
Well, thank you. Do we have public speakers on this item?
No one is raising their hand. If anyone, any of the attendees want to speak on the budget, please raise your hand at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any speakers.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy.
Thank you. I just wanted to make one comment regarding the $750,000 that we have included in this next fiscal year's budget for quiet zone purposes. And it was really great news that we received between our last budget meeting and last month that NCTD was going to go forward and update the studies that we need to be able to actually design the supplemental safety measures to implement our quiet zone. So at that time, I think we were thinking we might need to look at our own study, see what needed to be done to update the quiet zone study, and then hopefully be out for an RFP to design those measures by this November. But because NCTD is doing the work now, they're going to be under contract within the next 90 days. They're going to be able to start that study. Their study will conclude within the year. And so whereas we had been thinking that we would spend that money earlier in this year, it's looking like the better decision for us to hold off till the end of this fiscal year and then design our supplemental safety measures based on the results of the NCTD study. So it's still awesome that we have this money budgeted as part of this year's budget. We're just going to be using it a little later, most likely, than we planned to before.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Mosca.
So we're at the end of the current fiscal year and we have our budget in place. It really does represent our views and our values. I think that I just want to take a moment to applaud city staff. I really like this kind of last budget kind of process, just with the strategic planning and then just kind of multiple opportunities for, to have conversation about our budget priorities. I think it worked out really well, and I think it shows. The budget is, it's balanced. We have really generous reserves, as we ought to have generous reserves, and it really does reflect the values of the City Council. We're prioritizing the quiet zone. We're prioritizing Pacific View, and once and for all, kind of getting that moved into a space where it's activated and residents of Encinitas and visitors of Encinitas can enjoy that facility. We're going a long way on streetscape, just pretty much almost there. It's this budget shows an absolute commitment to finishing streetscape, safe routes to schools. We have money in safe routes to schools, continuing to try to encourage people to have to walk or bike to school instead of driving and congesting some of our neighborhoods, and just spending so much money on making our streets safer for everyone to be able to walk, to bike, or drive if they need to. But I think this budget really does reflect our values, and so I just want to say Thank you. It's been a process. It's been a lengthy process, but we have a budget before we need it, before the end of the fiscal year, and it's a good one. So I'd like to move the staff's recommendations regarding this budget.
Okay, thank you. I'll second that. Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you. I just want to play off of something that Deputy Mayor Mosca just said, because it's something I've always believed, and that is that if you want to know about the culture of a city and the values of a city, just look at their budget. You know, and sometimes that might seem, well, why is that? But it's really what we decide to focus on is what's important to us. And so I think we've been successful at achieving that here with this budget. Not only are we able to carve out the money for Pacific View and really support art and culture in our community, but we've been innovative and kind of, you know, a mature city in that we've pursued the streetscape funding through the iBank. And good for us, because we have managed ourselves so well that we're in a good position to really access funds as we can for our future needs. So other than the streetscape and Pacific View, I did want to give a shout out to a few things. And one of them is the quick builds that we've integrated into this budget. And we're extending our mobility number by $300,000 to really capture a couple projects, and a couple of them are in District 3. So I'm really happy to see that. So that's good news. I do want to call out too something that isn't identified as an item, but it's within the Parks and Rec budget item, and that is we've doubled our expenditure on our habitat stewardship program, which is one of the open space programs that Councilmember Hinsey and I put forward to increase funding for and increase emphasis for in our open space resolution. So I want to just call that out if other people didn't realize that that was part of this budget, and it's an action that we've been able to take right away to really double down on our focus on habitat stewardship here in Encinitas. So I'm very happy about that. And then there's the important things, but they might not be like the highlights of everyone's big numbers. But for instance, at the Encinitas Community Park, this was decided last year, but we're finally able to fund a assessment of volleyball courts and bocce ball courts at Encinitas Community Park. And I don't want to diminish things like school crossings. It's a small item, but it's so important to the quality of life and the safety of our children in our community. So good on us. And then there's the big projects like Santa Fe Drive that is moving forward successfully. It's going to be ready for the first phase of bidding, and it's going to move forward by the end of this year. And the whole community that's associated with access through Santa Fe Drive is very excited to have the improvements coming. So I think that just hits on a few. And if there are some projects here that you don't see being funded yet, I think I'd just like to share with anybody who's listening. We are developing programs for finding funding, and we're in a good spot. We've managed our money well. We've got some shovel-ready projects, and we've got some opportunities out there to find some money. So we are continuing to look at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Lyons. Councilmember Krantz.
Yes, thank you. And let me applaud the efforts of the city manager and her team for a fantastic document. I do recall from our last conversation about the budget, there was a position that was going to be reclassified in her office, and it is no longer being reclassified. I thought it would be important to point that out. I also want to point out that there is a significant number of positions that are being added to the process of development services so that we can hopefully address the backlog that department has. So I appreciate the efforts of Director Sapau and his team to identify the needs there and work with the city manager to put the proposal in front of us. I also want to point out that there's a new code enforcement officer as part of this budget to address some of the issues related to the short-term rental, the uptick in short-term rentals and the nuisance properties that are a part of that. So again, I think we're responding to the needs of the community in a very effective way. And then finally, I want to make sure to point out that as has always been the case, this council is prioritizing public safety. A significant portion of our budget goes to public safety operations, sheriff's department, fire services, and marine safety. So that's something that I don't anticipate will ever change, but we are actually spending more, not less, in that area, and I think that's appropriate. So I appreciate all the effort that went into this, and we'll be happy to support this.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what all my colleagues have said. I just want to highlight some of the things that are really important to me. So I think this budget is really great, and it is a reflection, as was said, of our values. And I appreciate that the city manager has brought it back several times so that it's iterative and that we have been able to modify it and make sure it's exactly the budget that we want this year. Some of the things, my colleagues have highlighted them, but the investments in public safety, in short-term rentals, as Councilmember Kranz just said, but also in the arts. I mean, this is the first budget since we purchased Pacific View in 2013. This is the first budget where we are actually allocating the money necessary to get this building up and open. And I think, when I think about what's the worst part of human nature, it's violence. And what's the best part of human nature? It's our ability to create art and to bond with other humans over that creation of art. And so this Pacific View, I think, is really an embodiment of our embrace of the arts in a way that's serious and profound and is worth recognizing. So $7 million in this budget will go into making Pacific View actualized and open to the public. And we haven't had that yet. So it's been, 8 years since we've owned it, and it's this council that is allocating the money to make that happen. So I think we've heard a lot of public comment on it over many, many months and years. And it's noteworthy that here we are at the very end, and it's basically, it seems as if it's already, the budget's gone through the cycle so many times that what the budget that came out was expected based on previous public hearings we've had. So, there's not a lot of last minute moving things around, which I think shows a process that's really transparent and a reflection of the community's support. So I'm really grateful to see that. And I also just want to highlight, so along with Pacific View, the other thing I want to highlight is just our continued serious investment in mobility. So our transportation projects have been a top priority for this council for many years, and the city and the residents who participate. And we know that active transportation is just the lifestyle of Encinitas and the heartbeat of our community. And we're continuing that with the $20 million that we're borrowing for Lucadia Streetscape, with a debt service payment of under $2 million a year, which we can afford, and is very much, we maintain our AAA rating, a really good investment, and we'll have a return on investment that I think will far exceed that, and also improve people's quality of life and make that corridor obviously much better in every way, as we've talked about many times. But then also all the other projects, extending the cycle track to K Street, Santa Fe, Rancho Santa Fe Road, the $300,000 more dollars in quick build projects, the quiet zones, and the $750 million to quiet zones. I mean, all of those are related to mobility and our quality of life in the city. And so our commitment is demonstrated by those investments. And I also just want to say how great it is to have a city where our operations budget does not eat up all of our money every year, that we're able to allocate money to CIP. There are so many cities that don't have that. They have to wait years and decades to do even just one CIP project. But we are able to put millions of dollars into the CIP projects every year because we are so prudent with our budgeting. And it's also great that the city manager is proposing, as we've talked about, trying to handle the hotspot issues that we have and to hire for engineering and planning professionals to help us process the large number of permit requests we have and serve our residents better. So I'm really grateful to see that in the budget and the responsiveness from the last budget, the tweaks that have made it even better. So anyway, I'm very proud of the city and our budget and our community and our professional staff for going through all the hard work necessary to put this together. And I just want to express my gratitude for that. So thank you. Councilmember Krantz, is your hand gone back up?
Yes, it has. I appreciate you indulging me just a little bit more. And I will follow up the comments about the streetscape by just pointing out that, you know, we're borrowing $20 million to do the very important north end and to continue the upgrade of a 100-year-old facility, that Highway 101, which in large sections doesn't have sidewalks, doesn't have curb, gutter, stormwater, et cetera. And so, you know, the commitment to borrowing the money and to continuing the construction of that long planned project is, I think, really important. And I would point out that we've spent approximately $25 million pay as you go on a huge chunk of the streetscape, as well as enhanced mobility across the railroad corridor. So really important to highlight that, I think, and to express appreciation to staff for getting us to that point. And then finally, with regard to Pacific View, yes, I think it is important that we're allocating the money to rehabilitate those buildings so that we can finish the placemaking that we had always planned. And it's great that it's the arts, but most importantly, it's a city-owned asset that is deteriorating. And so the longer we wait to make these improvements, the more damage is going to be done to an existing building that is certainly salvageable. As the architect pointed out, it's got good solid bones. And we had a comment earlier today about open space acquisition, and I would point out that acquiring 3 acres in our downtown is a pretty significant investment in open space. So it is, I think, going to be a legacy that we leave our future generations that will last for a very long time. So anybody that's interested in open space acquisition should certainly be supportive of the purchase of Pacific View. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's go ahead and vote on this budget.
Okay, let me get to that. Excuse me. Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz?
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mosca?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Yay. Okay, great. We are done with all of our action items. And so do we have any other things people want to say under their AB 1, 2, 3, 4 reports? No, okay. No, city manager report.
Yes, one report, Mayor and Council, during the community grants item, several people or a couple people mentioned that maybe the people voting on the grants or working on the grants should, maybe they were conflicted. And I just want to let you know that the staff in between items did look at that. And there were 5 instances where people involved in organizations that applied, they recused themselves. So they didn't vote on those items. So the E for E person did not vote or score E for E. Encinitas Friends of the Arts, same, etc. So I just want to clarify that on the record.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. City Attorney, do you have a city attorney report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 2 items to report. The first item to report is I'd like to amend the report out from closed session from item number 2, that's Shar versus City of Encinitas. I would like to report out the reportable action that City Council authorized a tolling agreement in exchange for a request for dismissal. The second item I'd like to bring up is Senate Bill 932, currently wending its way through the Senate, and it's currently in the Transportation Committee. And what Senate Bill 392 would do, or sorry, 932 would do, it would amend the circulation element of the general plan, or mandate that cities amend the circulation element of the general plan to require certain traffic calming measures related to bicycle and pedestrian fatalities, and would also give a private right of action to cities within certain counties, including San Diego, for those cities that fail to implement traffic calming measures as part of their circulation element of the general plan within a specified amount of time.
Is that a bill we've taken a position on as a city?
I'm not aware that it has reached the city at this point.
Okay.
I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that report, City Attorney. We appreciate it. Do we have a city?
It does sound like something I would support. Can we, is that something that the city manager can take up with, to see about a support letter for that one?
Yeah, we can look at that one. And as I was communicating with council member Lines, one of the things that we've noticed about this particular legislative process, probably true all the time, is that we start out in early wanting to support or oppose something, and it changes dramatically. So for example, today we pulled one off of the agenda because between the time we put it on the agenda and today, a number of things changed and we were asked to take it off. So I would just ask that we try to look at what the League of California Cities and/or our lobbyists. So I'll be bringing some of those forward, but I know that there's a couple of them that you folks have asked about, and the League is staying in a holding pattern on a few of them. So I'll double check this one as well.
It doesn't seem like the League would support anything that would give a private right of action against cities, but
yeah, no, I was just saying that in general terms.
Right. No, I know. I mean, I think this is one where there may be multiple interests, which is often the case, but maybe we should just get a little more information from Pat to the council about this bill.
Yeah, that's what I was asking for.
Yeah. Okay. And city clerk report.
The only thing I have is we still have a vacancy on the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission for the Olivenheim representative, and the application deadline for that position is tomorrow, the 16th at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Do we have any applicants yet?
I believe we have 2, and I'm just checking eligibility.
Oh, okay. 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 Good to know. Anyone else? Okay. Well, then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.